Team Gwentlemen are thrilled to announce something special we've been assembling for quite some time, the Gwentlemen's Invitational. The Gwentlemen's Invitational, or TGI, is a comprehensive team-based tournament drawn from the entirety of the Gwent community worldwide. Dozens of teams of 3 will compete for 5 weeks of Swiss-style Gwent competition in a best-of-5 conquest matches. The highest achievers among those shall advance to a round of playoffs where they will compete in a single elimination bracket in a best-of-5 conquest matches to determine the greatest Gwent team of all. All manner of Gwent-focused groups will be receiving invites to play in the tourney. You'll see teams formed by pro esports organizations like Fatesi Karma, nation-based alliances like the French Community, Gwent groups like Commander's Horn, and individual tournament champions like TGO July's Vishra. To give everyone a shot at competing, popular forums like Reddit's R-Gwent and Discord's public Gwent servers will get to elect teams from the best and brightest amongst them to enter the fray. Multiple matches will be shoutcasted every week for the community on Team Gwentlemen's Twitch channel, featuring celebrity casters from within Gwent community like Mega Mogwai, as well as some surprise hosts we'll reveal soon. The Gwentlemen's Invitational will last a total of roughly 6 weeks, so buckle up! Gwent will witness at least one significant content patch along the way, so TGI could truly be anyone's game.
Good day, beautiful boys and gorgeous girls, and welcome to the Gwentlemen's Invitational Week 5, TGI Week 5 Patch Week. My name is Jaggerus, and today I'm joined by a person who still plays Arid even though he's not very good anymore. What up, Ocean Mud? How's it going?
Hey Jaggerus, it's good to be here for another week of TGI action, and although it's already Week 5 and we're halfway through, things are about to be completely turned upside down with the patch rolling out this past Tuesday, huh?
Yeah, this is a very exciting week for us because we're going to really see which teams are able to innovate when it comes to deck building and which people are a little bit slower starting. And what's even more exciting is that next week, because we've just had a hotfix today, we get to do it all over again.
Yeah, I think it's very important what you said about innovations, because being an adaptive or innovative style of player, it's going to come into effect this week. And it's something we knew when TGI started. We weren't going to have TGI all on one patch, and as things change around, these variations brings twists and a entirely different skill from a player's perspective to determine in-game versus the previous patch when you knew every card that was about to be played. And so this is actually a time when some players will thrive and others will collapse a bit. And it's this dynamic that will be very interesting to watch, and we'll get to preview that in a little while. But before we do, let's actually bring up the brackets coming into Week 5, and even some matches for this week that have already taken place.
Yep, there you go. We can see the results of every game that has been played this week, except for the 2 that we're going to be seeing, the mashed potatoes with thick gravy. I'm sure you guys all love that. Quote versus Sixth Faction, and Ask Gwent Elba versus Team Shoop. So interesting results. What do you think, Oshima? Which results interest you?
Right. Me personally, I'm kind of a fanboy, so I have to give credit to Team XD Esports International, rocking Merchant, Petrify, and Trudon. They're sitting pretty comfortably at 4-1. And we can also see Pumpkin Down Under. Sir Pumpkin, after he got partnered alongside his teammates Tom Fleur and Aya Power Guys, they took the win over F2K Group 3. This brings Pumpkin Down Under actually to a total of 3 wins and 2 losses, and it keeps them in the running to the single elimination playoffs. Unfortunately, it brings Fade to Karma Group 3 to a record of 2 wins and 3 losses, and with the tournament progressing week by week, it's only getting tougher.
Yep, those 3 losses mean that they're no longer in the running for the playoffs. We have one more week after this of this Swiss 25 teams matching up format before we go into a playoff, and only the top teams are going to make it through. Speaking of top teams, our current record holder is Team Aardvark, who are the only undefeated team remaining in the TGI Invitational. And I don't think this is anything that people predicted going into this. Like, people maybe weren't watching the team made up of Creepy, Madara ZA, and the Joker. This maybe wasn't the team that people thought were going to be doing so well. Meanwhile, Gwentlemen Blue, for example, a team that everybody thought was going to be doing well, that's with Swim and company, that's Swim, Freddybabes, and Vishra. That team fallen by the wayside and are now officially out. But still lots of kind of matches to be played, lots of games which will showcase who is in and who is out. Now, the game that we have for you guys this week is actually, both teams I believe are at 3-1, so this isn't necessarily all or nothing for these teams.
Right, that's exactly correct. And coming into this week with Team Aardvark, with the innovations and stuff like that, it can show that they're still able to keep up. They're adaptable. And so let's see. I'm very excited about the future of Gwent and the patches. And I'm just as excited in our first match with Mashed Potatoes with Thick Gravy. They're featuring Captain Moody, Nimrafel, and Oviotro. They're three prominent players showing on ladder. And it's a team that's sitting comfortably at 3-1 as the tournament progresses.
Yep, so we've got Thick Gravy versus Sixth Faction will be our first matchup. And these are, I would say, relatively unknown players in the community, though Sixth Faction has got Gravekeeper, I believe, as their team captain, and he was actually playing in the Gwent Mania tournament that took place yesterday. I believe he came second overall, so he's already kind of showcased at least his own skill in terms of tournaments with the new patch. I've seen him play in one, and like I say, he came second, so definitely someone who I think has a lot of adaptive experience. He's played in different card games such as Elder Scrolls, Hearthstone, Faeria. Like, he's kind of well versed in cards games, teamed up with, I believe it's Jan Yang and In Sang-Fa. They're kind of representing Korean Gwent, which is kind of an unknown scene. So they're, I think, the team to watch playing up against Mashed Potatoes with Thick Gravy. Who do you think's going to win?
What you said was a very interesting point about them being representative of the Korean community. It's a tough call to make with Sixth Faction. The reason they're in the tournament now is because they won a tournament to be grouped up. While I really enjoy Mashed Potatoes with Thick Gravy, it might just be because I'm hungry. Because Sixth Faction is no slouch, and everyone who's made it to this point in the tournament, they should really turn out to be a great game.
Oh, definitely. I think we're going to have to make some predictions. That's always how it goes. I want to see Korean Gwent succeed. I think, Korea is a really big gaming scene. They have a lot of competitive players amongst other games. So seeing Gwent take off in other countries, I think, would be really good for Gwent as a game. Seeing it become more global, more popular in places like Asia would be really good. So I'm really hoping for a Korean Sixth Faction win here. What about you, Oceanmud?
Yeah, I completely agree. And with all the feedback about Gwent developing to be the premier competitive game, the teams you're watching now have the potential, with everyone's help, to continue growing and be successful as the esports community itself grows. Like I said, tough call to make. Let's go with Mashed Potatoes with Thick Gravy, and we'll have to see. But without further ado, let's all sit back and enjoy the match with our two casters, Swim and Crash Overlord.
Okay, so I am Swim. I am joined by my co-caster Crash Overlord, and we're going to be casting this first set. Now, we've already done pretty much introductions for this team, so we should just be able to get right into it here.
I'm really excited to see what kind of decks these teams really do bring. This was right after the patch, so there was a lot of experimentation going on, and the third faction that most teams brought was actually quite shaky. Nobody quite knew what was the third best faction to bring.
Yeah, so this is quite interesting. We see both players opening with Arid, Oviotro from the Sixth Faction and Insang from Mashed Potatoes. Both players opening with Arid. What do you think about Arid as a deck in this meta?
It's very dependent on kind of just being allowed to really play long rounds that matter. So in a position where it's allowed to win round 1 without expelling all of its cards, right, it can go into a fairly long round 3, so it has a lot of potential in that situation. But if, say, it faces a deck that can beat it in round 1 hard, but can, with a lot of weather clear, some decks can manage to do that, and then essentially force them, bleed them in round 2, going into a short round 3, Arid struggles quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And we see here one of the most interesting things about Oviotro's deck is it's not using the Wild Hunt Longships. Now, the best Arid decks to emerge these days have been cutting those Wild Hunt Longships. They were used, they were experimented with early on, but people deemed they were a little too removable and not really high enough value. But they're basically just going to be playing for control here rather than trying to beef up their board with value, both sides.
Most definitely. So we see in Insang's hand, we see the Crones. That's a potential high-tempo catch-up, or even just pressure play. I'm wondering when he's going to drop them. And I'm assuming he's going to use them in round 1, or like the team is going to use it in round 1, but there is a chance they try and save it for a round 3 finish. What do you think about that option?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on how this plays out. Now, Insang did win the coin flip, so he is able to try to go for that tempo Crohn's play. It actually looks like he's threatening being able to take it in a single card, although the Crohn's here will only tie it since the Frost will hit both sides equally. But
interesting with the Frightener play.
Yeah, basically, one of the things about Insang's hand is that he has Igni, and this is a matchup where it's actually potentially quite difficult to get that Igni value out, so he's going to have to pretty much go and do that now, I think. This is probably the best Igni he's going to have this game, and we can also see he drew into Wild Hunt Longship, so he's going to be using a Longship Crohn's version as opposed to Overyotra's.
Swim, he actually can't use Igni, this was after the patch, right?
Oh. Yeah, right.
So,
of course. Wow. Okay, no, that was my bad. So Igni is actually going to be even harder to get off. I mean, being able to put 25 points on a row after committing the Frightener out is going to be it's going to be really, really difficult for him to do. I mean, he's got Genre to move some points around, but that damages it as well. This Igni might just not go off in this matchup.
I actually wouldn't be surprised that Igni gets just kind of mulliganed away in later rounds, as it might be a dead card unless he gets a really, really good Drowner off. But neither player is really running any buffs, correct? So
yeah,
at least I think so.
Yeah, and that's gonna be a big deal for this matchup, not being able to find value out of that. He is gonna get a really large Eskel, a 19-point Eskel right off the back of that Frightener, and that huge tempo swing is extremely threatening because Overyotra lost the coin flip. Now he has to make a decision. I mean, he can't get ahead in this play, right, on Overyotra's side, so he has to be committed to go 2 cards down if he wants to stay in this, and that's a huge commitment.
That is quite big. I might be tempted to pass here, but might have been actually tempted to pass even earlier back before. Just like after seeing that Frightener, maybe your best option instead of Frightening back was just to immediately pass. But yeah, the Crohn's tempo into the Eskel was just a bit too much, I guess, round 1.
Yep, he's getting really, really good value out of those Crones, just getting them out of his deck, forcing it to even cards on the win. He has the option to dry pass and take round 3 straight up with 1 card advantage and forcing Overyotra to go first here as well.
Tough draw. Second Frost after already having 1 in hand. That's gonna leave him with quote-unquote a dead card, unless he gets a decent draw next round. So
yeah, this is, I mean, we're looking at relatively even hands here. Again, obviously it's a mirror match. Both teams are kind of playing for the same kind of idea, which is heavy control in the long round. And there's the pass right off from Insangfa.
I actually really like the toss of the Operator. I like keeping the Frosthound because it's probably going to give you a lot more value with just like the weather in round 3. And again, Arid versus Arid in a really long round 3 as expected, so
yeah, the Navigator was good there, and he has to send back that Frost, so he's got more Frost than he's actually really able to find a use for, but he's also sitting on the Archgriffin. That's a big deal.
That's really good for him.
Yeah. There are, however, 3 Frosts still coming out from Insangfa's hand, right?
And quite a lot of movement, right?
Yeah.
Hunter moves and Drowner moves, so that's pretty damn good.
So this is looking like a pretty bad position for Overyotra here. I mean, what is he hitting with that Caretaker? The Caretaker is only hitting the other Wild Hunt Hound, right? Which he doesn't have a use for. So the Caretaker is basically just locked into hitting that Crone Bruess as a 12-point play, which is not really what you want from your Caretaker. And that instant pass from Insangfa is really, really hurting Overyotra's ability to win this one.
I mean, I think his plan is to actually be able to kill something this round that then he'll Caretaker. So, say maybe once Frightener comes out, Drowner comes out, he might just try and focus to kill it so that he can then Caretaker it, because that's a really good card. 11 points if he can pull something.
But at the same time, the Imlerith is in Insangfa's hand, and the Imlerith, I mean, without something like that, it might be a little tricky. I mean, he does need to find Caretaker value that way, but the Archgriffin isn't going to be incredible. Is there anything in Overyotra's graveyard that the Archgriffin could actually send to enable a Caretaker res? Is there anything relevant?
There's a Raider, right? But that's about it.
Yeah, I think that's it. and that's just not going to be great. I mean, Oviotra is just playing down on points here. We see the Wild Hunt Warrior coming out from Insengva, just pinging out for a little bit of extra value. We'll have to see what Oviotra does here.
I would say probably just Drowner into the front row.
Yeah, I think you have to.
It's probably just the most neutral play you can make that's still good. You don't put yourself into weather, you force your opponent to respond to it.
And another big thing we see with Oviotra's hand here is that he has too much weather. Knowing how many weathers to use from a deck building perspective and even to keep in your mulligan is kind of important, because if you predict the opponent has clears, you're going to want more weathers than you reasonably need. But at this point, because Insengva doesn't actually have any of those clears, Oviotra is sitting on a White Frost, a Silver, which does absolutely nothing. And that's really, really going to hurt his ability to push this one.
That's quite unfortunate. He got punished a bit because, I mean, I'm assuming he wasn't expecting to draw the White Frost, but he was sitting on exactly 3 weather, assuming he would toss the regular Frost back, right?
Yep.
But he drew the White Frost afterwards, no clear in the opponent's hand, quite unfortunate. That's a fairly good Archgriffin, clears the weather, protects him for another turn at least.
Yeah, but Oviotra knows that there is at least one more Frost coming down for Insengva here, because he can see that Arid at the same time. I mean,
then again, sorry to cut you off, but do you think Arid might be better used on a wild longship? Assuming you're going to have the amount of...
I mean, it depends on how this plays out, because he has the 2 weathers, and he does have the 1 drag off of the Drowner. So it depends how many units Oviotra ends up putting onto the melee row. I expect the first unit to get Drownered, and then maybe the second unit he plays in Insengva will then decide whether he wants to do a Frost or a second Warship.
There's also the chance that he doesn't use the Frost at all. To make his opponent row stack even harder, he does have the Marigolds in his hand. So it's a really nice punish.
Yeah, and Insengva does have kind of some awkward cards in hand here. He's got the Wild Hunt Longboat, which of course is kind of hard gaining value because all of his Wild Hunt units are just getting pinged off by this weather, and he has the Igni, which he's not going to be able to get value out of. But at the same time, that opener with that huge tempo plus the Frightener is just representing an extra card you bring down. Is the difference of Insengva's hand quality enough, in addition to the in addition to the Dead White Frost, for Insengva to be able to lose this?
There's gonna be it's gonna be really hard for Ovi to win this. He's essentially down 2 cards, right, with the White Frost doing nothing. So being down 2 cards, let's say Igni doesn't hit, you're almost even there. But I think just the quality, Arid still being available, and that's like 2 to 3 units potentially. It's a lot of power left.
Yep. So here it looks like Insengva is playing out his Wild Hunt Longboat. He's going to put it on the range row because that's where he's stacked the most strength, and already that's buffing his units, but it's units that are just going to be dying to this Frost on all 3 rows anyway.
I guess this is where like the weakness of the longships comes through. Like, sure, in a long round, the more you stack up, they're good, but if all of your units also die, then you don't have any left to buff. It's quite unfortunate. I'm impressed with the like patience of the Emelrith though. He's had an 8 power target for a long time now. He hasn't taken it yet.
Yeah, and we see in Insengva's hands 2 cards specifically that represent like a row stack punish, those being Marigold's Hailstorm and Geralt Igni, both of which, I mean, he's kind of baiting Oviotra here by playing weather into only 2 rows. He's baiting Oviotra to overstack the melee row a little bit and to get value out of Hailstorm and Igni. And I think you were right. I think that's why he's pulling the longboat here. He doesn't end up pulling the 3rd weather, because if Oviotra ends up stacking that row, all the better for Insengva anyway.
Also, the 3rd Hound wouldn't have been spawned with an Operator, which does represent an additional few points as well. So, even though that's like back row and he had nothing in there, so the weather's just going to deal additional damage, if he does intend to put something there, that's still an additional 3-5 points that he's getting.
Yeah. Pretty awkward situation for Oviotra. What is the Caretaker pulling out here?
I think it's probably just going to be a warrior as the strongest play. Maybe we see a long ship, but I don't think there's enough Wild Hunt allies left. No, not at all. Definitely.
There's no Drown Graveyard either.
Yeah. Oh, now there is. Oh no, not yet. Never mind.
Yeah, he did put a longboat in the graveyard, but the longboat doesn't really offer anything to Oviotra's board right now, having only 2 Wild Hunt units. Well, I guess 3 after pulling his other warrior.
After Operator dies, it's back to 2.
At the same time, the fact that Insengva is playing into 3 weathers and Oviotra is only playing into 1 in terms of like the weather actually hitting presence is definitely relevant here. And Insengva is basically just holding on to his tools. He knows he has the Isengrim and the Drowner to be able to basically pick off Frost Row units. I mean, the Drowner effectively can be counted as a kill in the same way that the Lurtz is, because it drags it to that Siege Row unit, and the Frost kills it over 2 turns that wouldn't have been having value anyway.
I think the fact that Imler is going to be a 17-point swing, and then Drowner is going to be much more than 11, just because it's going to pull a unit into Frost that'll take maybe once or twice, is going to lead to that win. I just don't see how Ovi actually gains enough power into cards to be able to like combat that much.
Yeah, I mean that's a really large swing potential right there. I mean, he might just play out the White Frost here. He's going for the Navigator. What does he ping off with this warrior? He hits the warrior and the Sea Ranger.
No, probably hits the long ship, the ship, right?
Yeah, and then it dies
because
to
it's
Frost.
buffing everything, so might as well. I don't know. White Frost probably comes out next, and I'm actually surprised he used it this turn. Maybe he's afraid of another long ship, and then like the buffs preventing units from dying.
Yeah, something like that could actually be a very reasonable concern.
Yeah, but the White Frost like could have delayed a turn. I think he should have used it even earlier, just so he wouldn't be playing minions into Frost, right? I don't think he had any pressing concerns, but I don't know. Maybe there was a play some time ago.
Yeah, I mean, as it is, always these like round three is always just basically a matter of sequencing at this point. Some people call it the sequencing round. Basically, just the order of your cards played is pretty much the only thing you're concerned about. You're not really concerned with tempo. You're not really concerned with passing. It's just about playing your cards in the right order.
Oh yeah, definitely. Since essentially whoever has more power just wins, and that's all that matters.
Yeah. So we can see him here, and it looks like he is pulling that same warrior, and he's going to get some value out of hitting that as well. I mean, the Igni is completely dead here. It is a 5-point Igni. It is a 10-point Hailstorm, and it is, as you said, a 17-point Imlerith, right?
Thing is, he can just road stack them, right? So
yeah,
Frost is still only going to be on 2 units.
This is yeah. So just between all of this, Insengva is actually going to drop this game. The Hailstorm and the Igni will be enough here, barely. Very barely.
Yeah,
a really close game there. That game mostly came down, of course, it being a mirror match, both players having otherwise equal resources. The tempo from the Crones and the Eskel in that like early round state, combined with the result of the coin flip, really just set this round 3 up for Insengva to be able to win it. Just having that extra card he played out, even though he did have the kind of dead Igni, plus Oviocho's somewhat awkward mulligans, the fact that he didn't have the choice of being able to even decide to mulligan away more weathers because he had these Frost and Hounds that needed to go anyway, really didn't work for him there.
Yeah, that was just unfortunate drawing into like the White Frost after already having 3 weather in hand. Wouldn't have been as unfortunate if your opponent had any weather clears in hand, but sadly not so. So yeah. So
it is Conquest format, which means Insengva is now out, and Oviocho still has the Wild Hunt deck that he needs to win with. So we should be able to get into our next game here, where we actually see Moody versus Jen Yang, Morvan versus Calvite, another faction mirror.
Do you think we're gonna see? Well, I guess we're going to see it right now, but what do you think about Reveal versus Spies? What I'm assuming we're gonna see, and if we see Spies on the Morvan side, how do you feel about that?
I mean, I've experimented with Morvran Spies. In fact, you have too.
Yeah.
Morvran Spies is it's pretty applicable. I think it's been losing a bit of favor these days to the Cynthia variant instead. But some people are actually running Morvran Spies.
So I think the reason in this tournament there is essentially infinite sideboarding, right? So the more flexible the leader you pick, the better you kind of are. The better off you kind of are, because say you have a very bad spy matchup, you can maybe switch to Reveal, and Reveal has a better matchup, say that your opponents only have one deck left. So I think Morvan might sort of, even though Morvan Spies might be slightly weaker overall,
Morvan is the more flexible leader.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is actually kind of interesting because Calvita has historically been the flex leader. So we see Jan Hyang opening with the Cynthia into Imperial Golem play. A very, very strong play. 19 points of tempo right off the bat. And this is what we see a lot of players using. He's hitting that Cantarella, which is exactly what he wanted, and forcing a really large response out of Moody.
And it is going to be Reveal. So Spies Assassins have... Like, Spies with Assassins have a really good answer to Mangonels. And stopping Mangonels usually stops Reveal from getting massive point tempo in round 1. So I wonder if we're actually going to see Mashed Potatoes possibly even pass quite early here. Seeing as they're already behind so far. Especially if they get their Mangonels, like, Assassin twice, for example.
Yeah, there's going to be 2 Assassins left in Jen Hyang's deck. He's going to be going for either an Emissary or a Calvite to try to pull into one of the Assassins to be able to kill that Mangonel. Let's see if he can... and
there it is.
Okay, so that's the second Mangonel down. Will Moody have the answer of a third one? I mean, Mangonel's ability to, I mean, like you were saying, upkeep that kind of threat of just swinging that tempo is a large amount of their value, and... when that's taken away, then the Spy Nilfgaard does have the advantage here.
Most definitely. I'm expecting Moody to still play his leader just to get the Imperial Golems out of his deck so he doesn't draw into them. But afterwards, if he keeps getting massively out-tempoed, I'm possibly expecting an early pass. Though... versus Spies, you kind of do maybe want to bleed them up to down to say maybe 4 cards with Reveal. You're perfect-handed with Reveal. Round 3 is obviously like a revealed Geralt with 3 spotters, but we'll see what Moody can do.
Yeah, so we see the Imperial Brigade start to come out from Jan Hyang. He's basically just deciding that he wants to commit for this round, play them out, obviously, gaining a large amount of points over time, and he still has the Calvite. The Calvite can potentially represent a really powerful emissary chain, especially with these brigades already on the board as well. He didn't find into his Imperial Enforcers. It looks like his variant only runs 1 Imperial Enforcers, but that's okay. You don't really need it, really.
I'm a big fan of 1 Imperial Enforcer in the deck. I've just found that it's far too inconsistent to be able to play multiple Imperial Enforcers early, because playing them later doesn't gain you the same amount of points as playing an Imperial Brigade does. So we see the leader come out.
Yeah, that's the pretty big tempo play by Moody, and that's basically, I mean, that's in part the idea of his deck. His game plan is going to have to be revolved around getting the spotters out. He's probably going to be using the variant with Vanilla Geralt to allow those spotters to get to 17. So he has, if he has drawn his options, the opportunity to, use Leo Bonhart on Geralt for a huge swing. We see Raw Tosser coming out from Jan Hyang here, just threatening the Imperial Golems on the melee row.
Yeah, quite a good play. You end up getting 15 points with a bronze card. That's really good. We see the Cantarella in Moody's hand, yet Moody actually sees 3 cards. So, okay, this is actually just me wondering, how valuable do you think hand information actually is? Because Reveal is kind of expecting to gain additional value from just knowing your opponent's hand, so maybe their cards aren't as powerful just by themselves in terms of points.
It really depends on the cards that you reveal. Most reveal cards are not really going to give you any use at all, but knowing certain ones randomly can actually have a huge value, so it's really hard to measure.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, if he had revealed that Igni, he might be playing a bit differently.
Yeah, most definitely. Still can't forget this is new patch, so 25 Igni, so Cynthia's still completely fine. But yeah, so I'm expecting maybe Calvit right now from Yan Hang.
Yeah, Calvit is typically the proactive play you do just to kind of filter through your deck. Now, one of the brigades getting locked kind of early hurts his ability to push for this round. At the same time, he can't really pass here. He doesn't really have enough tempo. Yeah, it's actually kind of awkward. I mean, he was able to deal with those mangonels very well, but the pressure coming down by Moody here is going to be a lot. He's going to go ahead and pass on Moody's end, which allows Jen Yang to just take it on a single card down. So.
It's quite good after losing the coin flip, but no Cantarella in hand, so maybe not even unfortunate. Having Menno means that Cantarella is always essentially 0 power draw a card.
Yep.
Though, is he running Infiltrators? He is running 2 Infiltrators.
Yeah, it's a bit of an awkward hand. I mean, you don't usually see yourself kicking in pair of brigades, but he might be able to find into them off of an emissary chain, regardless, or possibly the Joachim. And he might be going for the instant pass here. He does go for the instant pass, just to extend round 3 out long. Moody's deck has a much easier time with a short round 3 than Jen Yang's. Moody's, of course, has those spotter combo pieces, and Jen Yang is kind of more reliant on getting these spy combos at big. Now, he'd love to find into that Impera Enforcers if he can get it to stick on the board.
Quite good. I wonder what Moody's going to play as his dead card, I guess you could say. Just like the card to get out of hand to win the round. What his least valuable card, I guess, is. And it's often like a fairly hard decision, actually.
Guardian Knight. That's going to go ahead and reveal the spotter. Interestingly enough, if he is sitting on Geralt and Bonhart, the Nilf Knight does represent a slight risk, because if that reveals the Geralt, then his Bonhart hits less value.
Oh, I think, if I'm not wrong, in this patch they actually changed Nilf Knight to always reveal bronze cards first.
Yep.
So
or it like switches, or it's like more likely is what I heard. But yeah, they did something strange with Nilfgaardian Knights in terms of like how they reveal. So it's possible that risk might have been diminished or even non-existent. Okay, so one of the most interesting things that we see about Jen Yang's hand here is that he has the Fringilla. The Fringilla is a tech card that you see sometimes run. Typically, if Moody ends up developing something big, Jen Yang has 2 removal options, those being Igni and Fringilla. He could even do something super cheeky, like use Fringilla to push a unit into double Igni range, and he does have card advantage, so that is actually a possibility. But at the same time, I feel like it might be more likely here, given the fact that he already has the Igni for hard removal, that in many cases he would just Fringilla his own units. But the spotters may represent enough targets for both Fringilla and Igni. What do you think?
I'm not sure. So the Cantarella kind of makes it a bit more awkward, because if Calvit and Caher don't get him a Cantarella, he essentially loses that card advantage, right? So it might be a bit risky going for it, but especially since spotters are already going to probably be the same exact power. I don't know.
So Moody does find into his cards here with Calvit. Now he sees the Rain Farm. One interesting thing about Rain Farm is that when you pull Rain Farm, and if you do find an emissary, that emissary does have the guarantee to show him both these Rathauser and Impera Enforcers. He's going to go right up for the Impera Enforcers instead. He will always have that Rain Farm under his access with Kahir anyway, so that's why he chose this line of play.
Now he also knows that Joachim will pull Rathauser as well, if he decides to go for that play, for example. Now, he isn't running Nausicaa Brigade. I'm actually a big fan of that combo. Joachim into Nausicaa Brigade that's already been strengthened once gives you quite a big tempo play, or power play even. That's a very good Eskel, actually.
Yeah, that Eskel, just to be able to ping off that potential threat and, really lessen its value, is going to offer a high value here.
Well, knowing that he's got at least Joachim and Reinfarn into an emissary, that's already 8 value. And that's minimum value that we're expecting to see off of the Impera Enforcer, so very strong Eskel there.
Yeah, I mean, this round 3 is basically going to come down to Moody putting out a lot of power off of these spotters. He might find something kind of valuable with Cantarella as well. And Zhenqiang seeing if he can gain enough value to control that. He has Fringilla, Igni, and the Meadow Infiltrator combo. So he will be able to put out a lot of value in terms of removal. And at the same time, that emissary placement is potentially a tell for Fringilla. I mean, if you're looking at that and you see that emissary being placed there, you might think that's a Fringilla right there.
Yeah, especially since you already know your opponent's running Rot Tossers. That's quite a tell. But then does Reveal even have a way to counter it?
Honestly, it kind of doesn't, no. I wouldn't say so. The Cantarella here, while providing kind of little value, because of course you're putting it on the opponent's spy, does at least give Moody the last play in this matchup, and the ability to play reactively given how much removal and control Zhenqiang has, especially because Infiltrator and Meadow is a committal 2-card combo, is actually a little valuable here.
So, I'm not sure, does Joachim still pull Rot Tosser here? Since he's already played an emissary, does that shuffle the remaining pawns?
It shuffles the remaining cards into the deck randomly.
I see. So that's a completely random Joachim then.
Yep.
Well, actually, yeah, Impera Brigade or Tosser or Ox. So Ox is not that great in this matchup unless you're locking Mangonels. It doesn't really hit anything.
Yeah, I would say this one is largely going to come down to whether this Igni can find value or not, because the Fringilla and the Meadow are basically going to be guaranteed value, and it's true that whatever the Joachim pulls does actually really have a sway on the outcome of this game. The Igni being able to find value or not is going to be probably the single biggest decider, and there it is already. Although at the same time he's killing a spy, but he has another Infiltrator to use on another spotter. Would you take this Igni?
With Fringilla in hand, I'm almost sure I wouldn't. You can already Mano the 13 power, and maybe you get a stronger Mano later if he does actually have Geralt in hand.
I think this is probably the only opportunity for Igni he has, though. I mean, the thing about this Igni is that he can play one or two more proactive plays. Like, he can play Infiltrator, and he can play Joachim, but anything after that, unless the Igni is enabled on something bigger, which it probably won't be by then, because none of the other rows are really established, then anything after that, you're kind of committing yourself that you might not be able to get that Igni value if you go ahead and remove that big spotter right there.
Oof, the placement on the Joachim means this Rot Tosser is probably not going to be that great.
Yeah. It's threatening the Cow Carcass on the range draw, but that is not a very powerful Cow Carcass there.
Yeah.
And there's really no way to be able to get value out of that one.
Joachim placement might have given him just 5 additional points, so if the game does come down to 5 points, that is a potential thing to look at. But I don't know. I'm not sure about the Igni. Didn't you mention yourself that like the Fringilla into double Igni combo might be stronger?
It could be, yes, it could be. We might actually see that one coming out. I mean, it basically just allows him. I mean, what is he removing in that case, though? And at the same time, he needs to. That's really tricky to pull off. I think that can only really gain proper value if the card to the left of the spotter is almost as big as the spotter, which it isn't. And if you wanted to go for that combo, doing something weird like even putting the Joachim on the left of the spotter might have actually been correct there.
Interesting. Yeah, considering it from that standpoint, I might just go for Fringilling my own units, maybe. You do have like the Cantarella and Reinfarn.
And he is giving himself that option with the Kahir and the Raw Tosser placement. Like, he can always Fringilla for that, what is that, 18 value. That's pretty good, but at the same time, Moody has the last play because of that Cantarella, and there's no guarantee that it's not going to get met with something like an Igni, or even a Hailstorm if he does go for that line of play.
I'm almost completely certain that Reveal does not have space for a flex gold, however.
Yeah, you might be right about that.
But this is the tournament where you're able to pull off stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay, so we see here, I mean, Zhen Yang has his entire hand revealed here, right? And he's not really gaining value out of these tools either. I mean, he can Infiltrator the Asir to make it disloyal, to enable the meta to shoot it, but of course that's hugely telling. This is kind of where Reveal is actually able to gain the most value out of just having the information. I mean, at the end of these last few turns, Moody is basically going to be able to sequence his plays perfectly. I said before, round 3 all comes down to sequencing, and that information allows him that just value if you're getting it from sequencing.
Yeah, we're actually just gonna see what... Ooh, Peter, very strong here.
Yeah, so that Peter is going to completely disallow this Fringilla from buffing an additional unit, and in fact, it's actually a bit of a tell, not just for us, but for Zhen Qiang, that there might not be, you know, any sort of like large removal coming down, right? I mean, you would probably not Peter there if you have something like an Igni or something like a Hailstorm or anything that can deal with a welly buffed row.
For sure. Yeah, I'm expecting just the Infiltrator and the Seer going into Mano and just waiting with the Fringilla to...
Yeah. This is a very, very awkward Fringilla indeed. I think the Infiltrator might be best going on the left of the Rot Tosser here, right? Just to enable the
Fringilla is probably the biggest strength swing you can get with Fringilla.
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, Fringilla value can really only be guaranteed on your own board in this case, and as I said before, the Peter is kind of a tell that you're not going to get punished for that Fringilla there.
For sure. But yeah, places it on the left of Cohere instead. Potentially loses 1 point here.
So what does this come down to? I mean, the Meno is going to be an 18 swing. The Fringilla is going to be a total of 11, right? On even cards, I think Moody probably has this. Oh, and there's the Foot Soldier as well.
Now, that's not a very strong gold per se, because it is only 15 points. But it draws him another card, and that's potentially very strong. A Spotter is only 10 power, but that is an additional 10 power.
So we see Zhen Qiang's hand being worth 29 points? I think it's an 18 and an 11. That's a 29 point off the 15, and we already see the 10 as well. So unless Moody's last card is another Daylor Foot Soldiers, is there a potential for that? Is there a Daylor Foot Soldiers we haven't seen from Moody yet? That's what Zhen Qiang needs to win this game, I think.
I think we've seen 3 of them. Okay. I think we've seen
because all Moody needs is a 5-point card in hand, and Zhen Qiang is going to go ahead and concede there. He realizes he has no chance at that. So we're going to see an even a tied match at this point here.
Yeah, that's intriguing. I wonder if they're going to... oh no, the reveal one, right? So Khalvit Spies probably just stays.
Yep,
we've seen Arid and Khalvit pass now. Oh, sorry, Morvan. I am horrible with names. Pass. Okay. What is the last faction each team is bringing? I'm expecting Scoia'tael.
Well, assuming it doesn't get banned, right? Scoia'tael is...
Oh, of course.
Yeah, Scoia'tael is going to get banned out. Yeah, I expect to not see Scoia'tael, presumably because of these bans. But I'm interested in seeing. I mean, we have to see some Northern Realms, I think I would say. That seems to be the most likely. They're commonly referred to as the second strongest deck after Scoia'tael, Northern Realms and Nilfgaard. And both teams opening with probably their kind of like weak link on the Aridin, which is interesting. So we do have a couple of donations having come in during these games. The first donation was by Ultharan7. He donated $4.20, and he'd like to say, "What's brown and sticky? A stick." And the second donation is by Taylor Farswift, donating $1. So it's going to be an Arnau, or is it going to be Skellige? You can tell me when it's over if the nerf was worth the pain. Got a long list of monster lovers. They'll tell you I'm insane. because you know I love the sages, and you love the game.
That's amazing.
Okay, and there's okay. Yep, and it looks like we are pretty much ready to go into our third game here.
Mm-hmm. And we're gonna see Arid versus Radavid. So, Mashed Potatoes bringing out the Arid again, hoping to get a win this time, and probably the strongest deck.
Yep, Radavid
right now.
Ooh, and we see a bit of an interesting build coming out from Oviocho.
Renew and Triple Knight Elects.
Yeah. Huh. What do you think about this?
I am not a big fan of Knight Elects in a Radavid or an armored deck. I am also not the biggest fan of Renew, simply because you can't renew your probably best gold Dijkstra.
Okay, so these names in the left side are actually bugged out. They're reversed. Oviocho is representing Mashed Potatoes with the Arid deck that we saw before, and we're actually watching the perspective of Gravekeeper on the 6th faction. So again, we saw Oviocho's deck before. It was the variant that wasn't running longboats or crones, and we'll see if he'll be able to get a win with it in this matchup.
So the NR list is running 0. Sorry, I'm blanking on the name right now. 1 mana bronze, 1 power bronze that brings out.
Oh, Reaver Scouts. Yes.
Yes, Scouts. Oh my god. Yeah, and so marching order is always guaranteed to get Stennis.
Yeah. So we see here this opener with Wild Hunt Hound. The beautiful thing about Oviocho is he has, or sorry, not Oviocho. This is Gravekeeper. I'm sorry. The names are throwing me off. He has the Redanian Knights, which he can put in the Frost. Now it's going to peel off their armor, and the Redanian Knights are only going to grow off of that every turn.
I think this is why Redanian Knights have been kind of put out of these armor decks, simply because Stennis pulling them actually reduces their power, because they start out with armor and they don't get boosted to 9 immediately. So
yep, this Redanian Knight's actually going to take 2 extra turns to start growing because of the armor that Stennis gave it.
Isn't it 3 additional turns? Because it would immediately grow.
Oh yeah, you're right. It is 3 additional turns as well.
So playing the Redanian Knight in hand might have just been the better play.
Yeah, possibly. At the same time, I mean, basically, we're looking at Oviocho having lost the coin flip. He's just developing these weathers out. I mean, what deck do you think is probably favored here? And especially knowing that Gravekeeper is sitting on a variant that doesn't actually have any clears. That's pretty significant.
I think with the Knights, it's actually fairly Radavid favored. You're playing a massive amount of armor, so your units aren't losing power. And then you also have units that actually grow in power as they're put into weather. So unless now, if I remember correctly, Oviocho doesn't actually run that much movement. We saw 1 Drowner, I think, and then Karantir. Yes. So he's actually going to have a hard time dealing with the Redanian Knights.
But from what we saw, he did actually have an additional amount of weather. He had the White Frost as well. Now, of course, these decks are changeable between matches, so it's kind of hard to say for sure. But assuming he brought something similar, he is going to be able to look at basically covering the entire board with Frost, and Oviocho not necessarily having an answer to that. That's except for, of course, these Redanian Knights. He's going to need to be able to get some Knight value out.
For sure. He also doesn't have a bronze spell in hand for Seal, so that's essentially a card he's most definitely going to save for later, unless he plays Thaler to draw into one. Though I'm not expecting to see that play. Kara does present another fairly good tempo play. Oh, are we actually going to see Thaler here?
Does this Thaler keep him in range? I mean,
I'm not sure.
What does he need to be able to threaten beating this in a single play? Would he need to do a Dijkstra?
I think in a single play, I'm fairly sure only Dijkstra, and even with very good RNG, might be the only thing that can actually take it in one. But maybe Gravekeeper doesn't mind just going down a card to win round 1. Just to be able to... So versus Arid, as I was talking about in the first game, you need to be able to bleed them in round 2. So if you go into a long round 3, your chances of winning are minuscule. However, playing Shani Stennis in your deck allows you to have like a 1-card 20 plus power play versus an Aridin that at max has 1 card that's maybe 13, 14 power.
Yeah.
Maybe slightly higher with an Eskel, right? So you definitely want to take one of the, like, you definitely want to bleed them out, reduce their amount of cards down to as little as possible before you go into that round 3, the deciding round.
Yep, that's pretty much the idea here. And he's going to have a lot of control over that. I mean, he can extend... I mean, so Northern Realms, Gravekeeper here on the 6th faction, looks like we got that sorted out, is going to have... Basically, he's going to be able to force out these rounds long, and Northern Realms has some really, really, really powerful pocket combos with stuff like Dijkstra, stuff like Shani and Stennis that can offer just huge swing potential on 1 or 2 cards in hand alone. So I think you're absolutely right. It does come down to how long the round 3 is. If Gravekeeper can keep the round 3 short by extending these earlier rounds, he's going to be in a great position for that.
For sure. So, do we see the Thaler? I'm suspecting he's trying to find a bronze spell so he can use his seal.
Yep. And he actually doesn't. He has to choose between Hailstorm or Knight. He's actually going to go with the Knight because the Knight represents a good amount of value on the melee row. At the same time as I guess the Hailstorm wasn't necessarily going to be great here. What do you think about that grab?
I'm not a fan. You have 1 Knight in hand. You only have 2 possible rows where they can gain value. And even then, it's a question if they actually will with movement, right?
So the Knight grab is basically the kind of long-term play. It seems like it's better in later rounds. Like right now, this is a pretty great situation for Hailstorm. But instead of going for the Hailstorm this round, and even though he doesn't need another Knight this round, the additional Knight is actually going to be pretty valuable going into the next round. But even so, we see the Frightener come down, and that means that both of these Knights are going to be able to be played on both of the empty Frost rows to continue growing here as well. So the Knight may have ended up paying off for him in that way.
Yeah, I'm suspecting the reason he didn't just Kara immediately is because the armor would have simply been immediately pinged off of the Knight elect, and then he would have been left with, you know, a Knight elect that doesn't gain points. And I'm suspecting he was trying to get seal off instead. Yep.
So it's looking to me like a pretty good position for Gravekeeper. I mean, he is pretty much just able to play these cards out. He's got the Knights growing in the Frost. The Frost being kind of Overyotra's biggest asset here. Turning that against him is huge swing potential. We're going to have to see Drowners coming down from Overyotra. Stopping these Knights' value is completely essential for Overyotra to even be able to have a good presence in this round alone. And like you said, we only did see 1 Drowner coming out from Overyotra in the last game.
We saw from Overyotra, we saw Eskel. Am I right in that?
Yep.
Yeah.
I believe so. No. Eskel was actually played by Overyotra's opponent in the first game.
Oh, right. My bad. Because I think a good play there would have actually been to essentially Eskel that Redanian Knight in the back row before it gets boosted.
Yep. So we're seeing these Knights generate value. I think it's a tell that Overyotra isn't sitting on Drowners. Does Overyotra have a pass here? I mean, he can pass and force 1 more card out of Gravekeeper. This is a hilariously backward situation. Typically, the Frost is supposed to be putting the pressure on, and typically Overyotra is not supposed to be the one that's looking for the pass here. But this might be Overyotra's last situation for pass if he's not sitting on something like a Drowner.
I think if you pass here, you're almost conceding the game. However, if you don't win round 2 or round 1, you're going to get bled in round 2 and have absolutely no way to win round 3 versus NR. So yeah,
there's
he
the
was
Jotun.
waiting on the Jotun.
So he's waiting on the Jotun, knowing that there might be a third Redanian knight in hand, and he's rewarded for his patience. His ability to just stop those knights from growing out, and in addition to doing that, potentially even block Gravekeeper from developing more strength on the melee or sieger. Like, for example, if he plays his heavy cavalry out, it just loses points to Frost. I really like that play.
That was definitely like a very good play. I'm very intrigued where this Kara is actually going to be placed. I'm assuming this is going to be. It might not be Thunderbolt Potion. There's a very good epidemic here.
Yeah,
it hits 5/3.
That he's going for that epidemic. He doesn't put that Kara there unless he's epidemicking. That huge epidemic cleaning up 15 points from Oviotra's board. In addition to those points, I mean, we didn't see any Wild Hunt longbows in Oviotra's deck last time, but changes could have happened.
Wow.
So Gravekeeper, possibly even denying a little bit of longboat value in addition to that, a huge Kara.
That was a very good warrior, because essentially before that warrior, there's a 50-50 chance of Frost triggering the Redanian Knight, which would have essentially given Gravekeeper an additional 4 points, 2 points being negated and 2 additional points by the Knight growing. But he set the Frightener down to 6 HP, or 6 power, so... there
here's
was
the Dijkstra.
Only a 1 in 3.
He opens with Redanian Knight Elect. He's basically just going to have to play this out for a value here. Looking like he wants to buff the Frightener with it, preventing it from dying to the Frost, perhaps. And what's he going to get next? He's going to get a Thunderbolt Potion. Thunderbolt Potion looks pretty good on those left units right now. Huge Thunderbolt Potion. And just like you were saying, this allows the Frost to 50-50 for that Redanian Knight, in which point, not only are you whiffing a tick of Frost, but you're actually empowering the opponent.
I think that means Radovid has to pass here. That was a massive hailstorm.
Absolutely massive. I mean, the fact with putting the Frost on every row, forcing a Gravekeeper to row stack if you don't want to give that Frost value, and then punishing that with your Hailstorm after that Dijkstra developed that tempo. A really huge pass coming out from Oviotra. And this is going to give him that kind of slightly long round 3 we were talking about. Again, it comes back to what we were saying earlier. It's all about how long round 3 is. Oviotra, it did take him a little while, but he was able to guarantee a decently long round 3. I mean, the instant pass has to... Yeah, the instant pass has to come out from Oviotra, which means, 6 cards.
Yeah, pretty good. Not bad at all.
Not bad at all. Because he is looking in a really bad spot if that round 3 is something like 3 or 4 cards or something like that.
Even less than that. It's brutal if it goes down to 1 to 2 cards, especially if Shani is drawn.
Yep.
And
so,
ooh.
We see the Sheila de Tanzerville come out, and it has to cast the Thunderbolt Potion, drawing the Trollolo. Huh. That's gonna be a big grab for him. Did we see a Morvud in Oviotra's deck before? I don't believe we did.
No, I'm not quite sure.
Without a Morvud or an Eskel to punish this Trollolo, it may actually just be able to offer a pretty ridiculous amount of value. The one thing about this Renew, though, is that because Dijkstra is disloyal, this Renew can only hit Karamets. So this is a Karamets in hand for Gravekeeper.
Unlucky, or maybe not unlucky, if you're on the Oviotra's side. He did not draw Shani. Shani would have been an amazing play. You get Stennis, and you get another bronze card from your deck. You give 10 armor to the Stennis, and you might even draw your second Dunbanner Heavy Cavalry for that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, part of the reason why these decks run Renew is because being able to reuse these super high power tools like Shani is something. I mean, you do want to draw into that Shani. Shani is a large part of Northern Realm's potential right now. So we see Oviotra. He's looking at this Trollolo. He's not necessarily sure what he's gonna do about it.
Maybe we see a lock come out. I'm not sure if he runs Morvud in his deck.
Oh, and there's the Eskel. Huge Eskel. And there's no Shani to res this. That is a potentially game-swinging Eskel there. Wow.
Now, first of all, that's an amazingly high-powered Eskel. But as a small upside to Gravekeeper, he did only have 1 Dunbanner in hand, so he could only have removed armor from 1 unit. And removing it from an elite is like gaining an additional 5 armor, right? So he doesn't lose as much power as he otherwise would have.
The S-Scale is still effectively hits in the range of something like 20. And there's actually the Gales into Olgierd. Now, Olgierd isn't typically something you really want to play late, but it'll have to do here. It comes down to pretty tight hands for both players. I mean, a Gravekeeper, he has the Radovid. The Radovid doesn't really have lock target, so we're looking at a 14-point Radovid. But what we do see in this hand is the pretty powerful Renew, Karametz, Ranged Row, Thunderbolt, and then next turn, using Heavy Cavalry on Redanian Elite. That's a lot of points, those two cards in conjunction. Is that enough points to just be able to force Oviotra out here? I mean, what does Oviotra need? Oh, that's big. That's
I was just about to say, we didn't see a choice when he played Gels. That means he has his golds in his hand, right?
Yep.
So a Karantir here pulling a Elect away means that Kara doesn't stack into 3 things, means that Night Elect doesn't buff targets, and that's going to be a lot of value lost for Gravekeeper.
A very, very powerful Karantir. And of course, the Frost ends up ticking down as well on top of all of that. So he is going to have to use the Knight Elect early there. And his plan now on Gravekeeper's side is to renew Karamet, switching it up, going to the Seadro on the right side, and Thunderbolting his units there. It's still pretty good value.
Yeah, it's still quite good. But Thunderbolt did get change dispatched, so it is it's a lot weaker than, say, last patch would have been.
Then, yeah, immune boost there. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, what's it going to come down here? We have the Renew from the Karametz. The Karametz offering a swing potential of it's got the 6.
And there's the Morvud. Now, interesting why he wouldn't have done that. Maybe on the 12 power would have done 1 additional damage. Am I correct in that? Or is that no? That is equal. That is actually equal.
Yeah,
Never mind me.
It's equal.
And there's the forfeit coming out.
We see Gravekeeper. Yeah, he's just gonna go ahead and forfeit.
That's a very early forfeit.
Yeah,
I'd say.
Yeah, it looked a little early, but apparently he wasn't very confident with his tools. So that is going to be Oviotro getting out, winning his game. So Gravekeeper from the 6th faction still needs to be able to win his with his Radovid deck. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, is it the Spy deck from MASH?
Yeah. No, it is...
Or is it the Reveal deck?
No, it is the Spy deck. You are correct.
Okay.
It's most definitely the Spy deck.
Okay. So that is going to be it here. We have 2 more donations coming. And of course, keep in mind, these are all going to the full prize pool of the game. $2.69 from Dunkoro, who says, I was playing with my Arid deck yesterday. It was really nice. My opponent played Syrian Triss, and I covered their rows with White Frost. The opponent cleared the board, but I just did it again. They cleared it once more, but then my deck was empty. And then we have an additional donation by Rain, who donated $25 to the prize pool of this event with no message. Thank you for that, Rain and Dunkoro. Okay.
Thank you.
So we should be able to get into our next game here. This could be the last one. Mashed Potatoes being 2 up. They only need to win 1 more. So it's going to be Mashed Potatoes Nymph Raphael against Jan Kiang on the Spy deck.
And we're going to see some menu.
Getting a little menu action. Ooh. Here we go. Ooh, are they going to chat with each other? Ooh, what do you think they're going to say?
I don't know. Are you ready?
What do you think about that move? Are you ready?
I don't know. I think it's quite... It might be taken aggressively. Like, maybe it's like you're pressuring them into playing early. I'm not sure.
It is a pretty high-pressure play. I will agree with you there. Are you ready? Here we go. Invitation is sent. TGA Machines, no field medic.
And there we go. We now know his deck. Their deck. Very exciting. I love the waiting play. I think it's a good play to make.
Yeah.
But we're going into the game now.
Yeah. Okay. So here we get into this one. As previously stated, it is Nimrafel on a Henselt deck. A bit of an interesting choice. We don't typically see Henselt as not the most favored, but he is going to go with his Machines Witchers list.
Wow.
What do you think about this list?
I am not a fan seeing the first hand. I think there's quite a few cards in here that I'm not a big fan of on this patch. This might have worked at the previous patch, but Witchers being a 17 power silver that takes 3 slots in essentially a meta where silver slots are probably the most contested for is a bit rough. You're running some 7 powers bronzes, and you're running reinforced ballistas that have a maximum amount of power at say 13. It does come with removal, which is a lot more useful, or a lot more powerful, but I still think they're not amazing cards.
Okay, so Nimrafel is going to go ahead and open with a reinforcement onto a K20 siege support. This is a move that's potentially very powerful, but very telegraphing. I mean, this is saying, this is my Henselt target. If you remove this, I don't know what I'll do. And we know Jen Hyang is running Assassins. So there's the Assassin coming out and just swapping it up. Funnily enough, the siege support does actually buff the Assassin 1 point before it dies.
Definitely shiny it out. I think it's very important to be able to Henselt those siege supports with the hand and with the deck plan that you have. Now, only Commander's Horn. The Commander's Horn is the only other tactics card in Nimrafel's deck that Natalis can pull out. So this could be punished by row stacking if the Kelvit deck has stacked in Hailstorm. Now,
that's true as well.
The sixth faction. Oh, sorry. The sixth...
Okay, sorry. No, you go.
The sixth faction does know that Northern Realms is the last faction to be played, and so Northern Realms commonly do row stack.
That's a huge Escal. Being able to go right through that armor and completely deny that siege support from ever seeing the light of day. No Henselt for Nimrafel here for huge value. That is a very valuable Henselt. Or Escal, sorry.
Yeah, but I'm not sure. There's not that many targets to remove in the Kelvit deck. We saw one Imperial Enforcer. This is probably the most important thing to remove with your machines. So I'm expecting just reinforced ballista here. No,
so here's a Henselt for the K20 sergeants. He's basically just getting out his crewmen. He's ready to. He wants to create these pockets because when he plays the reinforced ballistas between two K20 sergeants, it will kill off that 6 strength Impera enforcers, and that's something that these battering rams cannot do.
Yeah, that's definitely true. He also has a Siege Master in hand, so maybe it could have been better to save the Henselt for the Siege Masters. You could have simply played the Reinforced Ballista here, mastered it, and you would have been able to kill... Actually, you would have killed the Imperial Enforcers on the same turn, but potentially a lot more removal later on. Maybe killing a brigade that will be buffed up. Ooh, Emissary positioning.
Yeah, and the positioning between these crewmen just completely denies Nimrafel's ability to get the double crewman deploys off, which means these reinforced ballistas aren't killing this Impera brigades, which just means more value for Jan Yang.
Yeah, especially with the kill on the Henselt, since Henselt is a crewman now. I was a bit surprised by the second Emissary positioning, because I was expecting it to go between Henselt and the Sergeant.
Yep. That's potentially a little devastating for Nimrafel here. I mean, he's being countered in what he does. Now, on the board state, he is 17 points up, but at the same time, he's on the play, so he's 1 card down. And he doesn't... I mean... Jan Hyang is prepped with these spies, right? The whole point of the spy deck is you get your spies out, and then they represent passive hidden value, because when you play these brigades, they're going to be able to swing for good value. So Jan Hyang is in a pretty dominant position here.
Yeah, for sure. Winning the coin flip and being the second player allows you to play in a nice way, like
it just gives you more control over the flow of
exactly.
the game. You kind of choose where the game goes a little bit.
So maybe what we'll see from Nimrafel is actually to tempo out as hard as he can, get out as much tempo as he can, maybe with a Natalis Commander Sworn play, and then maybe try and find a pocket where he can play Thaler or simply pass where his opponent might have to go down 2 cards to win the round. Or not go down, but use
There's
the
a
card.
battering ram to be able to finish off that Impera Enforcers.
Mhm.
That's pretty useful. It's pretty useful for sure. I mean, Jen Yang, he's pretty committed to this round, right? Jen is not looking for a pass here. He is 16 points down, but again, he does have these spies established, and these spies do represent hidden points. He's got 4 already on the board.
For sure.
And Nimraffel's basically going to be looking to get value out of this Natalis into Commander's Horn. Basically, Nimraffel, in the beginning, in the mulligan, he mulliganed away all these witches from hand. He is going to be pulling into them with Dijkstra, and that is going to give him potentially a huge amount of tempo, but tempo is not really what you necessarily want when you're having to play proactively.
In this position, getting too much points just means your opponent's pass and you're down 1 card. You need to find a nice sort of way to get ahead by enough where your opponent doesn't want to pass, but where you're so far ahead that maybe you passing is actually correct. So it moves into this position where there's no quite like obvious correct choice for your opposing player.
Now, these Impera Enforcers are going to be pinging down this battering ram. This is giving Nimrafel a pretty good line for K20 Siege support to heal it and redeploy it, but at the same time, he looks like he might be considering taking this pass. Possibly.
This is the option to essentially gain back that card after losing the coin flip.
Yep.
We might see maybe a Dijkstra as well. He was mousing over it, but no. Looks like he's going to take the pass.
Playing for the pass here is pretty solid. Jen Hyang does have these 5 spies developed, and again, every spy is just hidden points, and Nimraffel is starting to get scared of their potential. He knows if he plays into this round further, Jen Hyang will be able to stay ahead of him and bully him out of the round, taking the last opportunity to force at least 1 card out of Jen Hyang after the pass.
Along with that, the Machines deck is obviously looking for a longer round 3, right? It has, well, actually,
Both
that's
decks
interesting.
But
This is a very interesting machine build, if you would even call it that.
That's true. It does have the Dijkstra finisher.
It has the Dijkstra and the Witchers to finish
and then
it off.
Natalis
Maybe
Horn.
Exactly. Even Witchers into Natalis, that is very strong for a 2-card combo.
So yeah. While the machine deck does kind of in a small way prefer a longer round 3, not nearly as much as the Spies deck. So taking into this round 3, and we are going to see, what is this? This is going to be a 7-card round 3. This 7-card round 3 might just be long enough for Jen Hyang to have the advantage here. What do you think about that?
Now, the thing is, Jen Hyang does not actually know that his opponent is running Witchers. So there is a chance he might try to bleed Henselt, because a Henselt Machines deck relies even more so than Spies, I think, on a long round, especially the Spies deck still having Yohim, I'm assuming, in it, and that's a very strong play, just by itself.
Yeah. So we see the instant pass going out right away, and Nimraffel looks like he's committing the battering ram, choosing it as his kind of least valuable card that he just wants to win this round.
Now that's a big surprise. I would say you toss out either the Master or the Reinforced Ballista, probably the Reinforced Ballista, as battering ram has quickly risen up the ranks as one of the strongest bronzes in the game. I think.
Yeah, I'd say so for sure. And one of the additional, I guess maybe he kept the Ballista for fear of another Impera Enforces. Oh no! Oh, Nimraffel finding the triple Witcher draw, drawing a Witcher at the end of from the mulligan in round 2, and then 2 more Witchers in round 3.
You know what would hurt off of Thaler if he plays it?
Oh
the
god!
Third Witcher and Commander's Horn. There we go, correctly playing the Witchers first.
Oh, devastating draws coming out from Nimraffel. He's going to be down an entire card here because of that in terms of power. That is.
But that is one of the risks you face when you want to save your Witchers for round 3. I have experienced it often myself.
Yeah.
Still,
you
not.
hate to see it.
It's unfortunate. However, it's still not completely over. The Natalis and DJ do offer a lot of power. That is a 26 power gold and potentially the same amount of power off of Dijkstra.
Yeah, it may in many ways come down to Dijkstra's value. Depending on how it plays out, but you have to Dijkstra very late. You can't Dijkstra until the Commander's Horn is pulled from the Talus, and of course you need to develop a board before even that happens.
And that's another amazing draw, actually.
That's true as well.
It's another 15 points. Now, we did see Igni in Yang Hang's deck previously. So if he is running it here, that might be a thing to watch out for.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, basically, what I guess you can expect to happen is if Jen is sitting on Igni and Menno, we can see Nim Raffle potentially stack melee, buff with Commander's Horn, Menno onto the 16 or 15 point Cancerella, and then I guess the Igni would follow then on the Vesemir at 11 at that point. That's does Nim Raffle have any option other than to Commander's Horn that melee row? That's very unfortunate. Doesn't look like he does.
He can thankfully at least play Kara into a different role, so that buff doesn't go onto the same one. Yep. But we'll see how he decides to sequence this. There probably won't be any chance for a Epidemic off of Kara, so it's always just representing the Thunderbolt potion.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I mean, it is largely going to come down to the Dijkstra here. I mean, there's just not going to be that much value you're getting out of your Reinforced Ballista. There's just not going to be that much value you're getting out of your platform and your third Witcher. And that's a pretty big Joachim there.
That's a massive swing. We do actually see a potential Natalis on mid row now.
Yeah.
But it faces the same problem where the strongest card in the row is a 7. I think what I prefer most is simply splitting up the buffs, Kara into one row and then Natalis the other one.
I think pretty much. I think you have to Kara ranged, but buff melee with Kara and then Natalis ranged. Yeah, man, that is a very, very lucky Joachim that had the potential to pull that golem out of the deck, right?
It did.
But he instead found the Cynthia, which is, of course, much more points. 11 more points in this case.
Yeah, for sure. It's not just 11 more points. It also brings out the Golem. So it's another additional 3, right? Really, really strong. I'm actually surprised that the third Witcher hasn't come out yet, because it's essentially just a passive play that does not commit him to anything.
Yeah, I wonder about that.
Right, because it's a card your opponent already knows you have in hand, and it's a play that doesn't really commit you to anything. Whereas, so you can wait an additional turn before you have to decide how to commit Kara, Natalis, and DJ, and so on.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to be committing Kara here. I mean, where do you Thunderbolt in this case? Do you Thunderbolt melee? He's positioning as if he's Thunderbolting melee.
There is a chance you Thunderbolt front row, because melee has 2 units that are the equal power, right?
Yeah.
And you Sovereign Jilla in that deck as well, so...
yes.
There's the Assassin there, and yeah, there's a chance, right, of some trickery.
So, I mean, it looks like Jen Yang is in a pretty dominant position here. I mean, Nim Raffle has more points, but he's down on cards. Jen Yang has these threats. I mean, it's almost certain he's sitting on a Menno from hand. It's very likely he's sitting on a high swing potential card like Igni or something as well. He's got some powerful cards in hand, and Nim Raffle, his power is going to be kind of contingent on where this Dijkstra is going to take him. I mean, the Jonatellis is 26, but it's 26 that's going to be buffing 2 cards that are potentially dead to 2 removals from Jen Yang already.
there's one of the removals. So
Yeah. So we have to see the Witcher come out here for sure, Askel.
for sure. If you don't play it first, you just end up losing 4 additional points. But yeah, Natalis looks like it's going to be going into front row, which might run into Igni. Or
Yep.
almost definitely. Well,
It seems likely from this perspective, unless that Igni was swapped out, or unless he didn't find it in those draws.
for sure. Well,
So
Yeah,
what
essentially-
what could this Dijkstra pull here? What are we looking at? I mean, there's one crewman on the board, so we're looking at battering ram. Siege
think
support
the-
isn't really great.
yeah, I think the best draws are most definitely going to be Battering Ram and Reinforced Ballista.
Yeah.
And then Masters are by far the worst draws because you don't have any machine on board. And I think that's one of the reasons I would have also maybe tried to play Witcher and Kera earlier, so the opponent couldn't assassin your only machine, right?
Yep. I actually think battering ram and then siege support is technically a little bit better. I might be mistaken actually about that. It might be the same.
You mean Siege Master?
Yeah, sorry, siege master, right?
Yeah, there are 2 resets on
Yeah.
the row. So yes, Master might be a slight buff
So I mean,
on
it's
points.
going to come down to whether we see Igni dropped or not here. I think that's going to be a big deal. If Jen Yang doesn't have the points to be able to offset this, I mean, something like an Igni, something like a Hailstorm will completely upset everything Nim Raffle is putting on, and he knows that. He knows he's sitting with this 54-point melee row, and he's just hoping that nothing is going to come down to punish this.
Oof, it would be pretty rough if it did.
Yeah, I would say so. But at the same time, I mean, that would be a Game 3 scenario. I mean, this is the game Mashed Potato has to potentially lose, right? They can give up this one and still take it to Game 3. Whereas if Jen Yang gives it up, then we go straight out of this series.
The series just ends. So, as a possibility, okay, no, we're probably not gonna see that right now. But there was maybe a chance
What is this?
of Peter?
Treason.
No. Treason.
Wow.
That's a card we didn't see last time.
Yeah. Okay, so it's Dijkstra versus this mystery card from Jen Yang. Here it goes. Okay, so
DJ.
Dijkstra's, he gets the siege support, and he finds
And
oh,
the Master,
no.
unfortunate.
Oh.
He did have twice as many of these cards as his machines, though.
Yeah.
2 machines in deck and 4 supports in deck. 2
So
Masters. 2
Jen
support.
Yang is gonna go ahead and get the infiltrator off.
And it's
Wow.
an infiltrator.
By 3 points. Oh man. Jen Yang
That's
was not
close.
actually sitting on that game. That Dijkstra
No.
did it. That
Yeah.
Dijkstra could have had this. If a single machine was pulled, that was it, right? Either
Yeah, for sure.
machine. Yeah. So the game. So we take it to match 3. Who is this left between? This is left between
It is still the Hensel deck, and
yeah,
then I
Nimraffel's
think it's,
Hensels.
is it the Arid deck?
No. It's Gravekeeper. I think it's Northern Realms on both
Is
sides.
it Northern
Isn't that right?
Realms versus Northern Realms? Yeah.
Yeah,
it is.
that is. Yeah, it's the Northern
Oof.
Realms mirror for round 3, but it's different because. So again, decks are potentially changed. Some things change. You have to keep the same leaders, but you are allowed to switch your other cards throughout your decks. So we have Gravekeeper on his Radovid deck, which presumably won't be changed, and we've got Nimraffel on his Hensel deck, which I don't expect to be changed, but he could actually switch it up.
So I think maybe knowing that you're facing machines, you probably take out Knight Elects because they often just immediately get pinged off, and then they're essentially just 8 power bronzes, right? So maybe he finds a stronger card than that to place in his deck. But it is hard if you don't make preparations beforehand about potential switches to your deck, right? I think because there is infinite sideboarding in this tournament, I think the option value of playing a flexible leader is so important, and I think Hensel is slightly more flexible here. So I'm leaning towards Hensel having maybe a small favorable matchup here, maybe.
At the same time, the Radovid is going to be able, the locking is going to be able to find value, I think, in pretty much any Hensel matchup, because you're looking at getting basically Henselt is all about right now, surging out, kind of huge tempo in round 1 off of value over time bronzes that they muster out with Henselt. So we'll have to see how it plays out. But before we get into that, there's one more donation we received, a $3 donation from Shani, and Shani would like to say, "Hi, Mom."
Sadly, we didn't see her. Yes, game.
So we should be able to go to this game 3, the culmination of this series, mashed potato to thick gravy, Nimraffle versus the 6th faction, Gravekeeper. And this is the decider of it all.
And we'll see what kind of text they've made to their decks, if any.
If any, yes. We're going to be looking at Gravekeeper's perspective with the dual hands from before. Gravekeeper switching it up, going from a completely, from the Temerian Raikou Temerian deck to the kind of more JJ Witch Hunter Commando package. What do you think about that swap?
I actually really like it. As I said, I think Night Elects are not great cards in the matchup at all. And this allows you to kind of keep up with the Henselt tempo, right? Because you're playing 18 power with one card, you know, you've got... you've got a lot more thinning, so you have the control over the Shani. And yeah, it looks like the Henselt deck's also been changed. There's an Eskel in there now.
There's that Eskel right now. Here it comes. Man, the feeling when you Eskel a Trollolo, that's just the dream, right?
Is that just the best target for Eskel?
Yeah, it's the single best target for Eskel in the entire game, I think. I think that's right.
So strong.
Yeah.
There is a tiny fraction of a chance that you don't Eskel this and maybe instead save Eskel for the round 3 if they say Shani Trollolo. But I think Shani Trollolo has gone quote unquote out of style. Yeah. But this wasn't played yesterday or today, so we'll see.
Yeah. So, I mean, Nimraffle won the coin flip. Nimraffle is going second. That means all Nimraffle has to do is really smash this tempo here. And he can achieve that in a few different ways. The Eskel is a huge plus 7 points on the tempo, 18-point swing. But he's also got some potential Henselt value. I mean, if he plays something like the Catapult into Henselt or the Siege Supports into Henselt, Gravekeeper may just have to give this one up. Now, he has his own huge tempo off of the Witch Hunters, but will it be enough?
Well, he can't actually play the Witch Hunters until he plays a Mage. So, was definitely expecting to see this come out. And I don't think he actually mulligans anything away, unless
he kicks the Commander's Horn with this.
Is that the only tactics in his deck?
Yep, with this deck it's the only... Well, he's got reinforcements too, but you still kick it because you have access to it later, and you might...
Definitely. Yeah. But yeah, as I said, I really like the Witch Hunter package. It really does keep up this tempo, especially with Natalis into Commander's Horn immediately. The one thing that Radovid, even though it has locks, it cannot deal with the bronze that will get Henselt. So... Yep.
The Eskel, though, comes in handy here. Now, this Temerian drummer, though, is a trap. He is threatening the Henselt on that, but we can see Nimraffle has 2 in hand. This is a decoy Temerian drummer, baiting out potential removal off of this Eskel. I mean, if he Eskels this, he's not going to be able to properly deny the Henselt.
And we're actually going to see the Shani into Trollolo.
Wow. A huge play because, of course, Shani gives it the armor, and Trollolo just aspires towards even more armor. So this is going to represent a really, really big heavy cavalry if this stacks up.
Massive heavy cavalry. Now, we also see the Marigolds in Nimraffle's hand, though. So that is potentially another good play. And that's an amazing... I love that pass.
Okay, so yeah, I am too. So the pass here, basically, Gravekeeper's playing a deck that is very contingent on these Witch Hunter, Blue Stripes Commandos strategies. With that pass, there's a risk that Gravekeeper could be drawing into some pretty unfortunate cards here, as you may pretty often see before thinning them out.
How tossing the Thunderbolt Potion, does not get punished.
An amazing pass coming out from Nimraffle there. I mean, that accomplishes so many things at once.
Oh, for sure. It also completely denies the Trollolo and the Shani value.
Yeah.
Both being probably 2 out of the 3 or 4 most, the strongest cards in that deck. So, really, really strong. And the Henselt can still come out this round completely untouched. Still has the Trebuchet target.
It has 2 different targets, the Trebuchet or the Siege Support. If the Trebuchet gets S-killed, no matter. He just plays Siege Support, Henselts that out anyway. So the question is, will Gravekeeper take this S-kill or will he wait one more?
Interesting. He might actually just Dunbanner Heavy Cavalry.
Yeah, looks like he's waiting on it. Interesting.
So, I think what he wants to do, the reason why he's already playing this, is I think he wants to seal armor back onto the elite, and then like potentially draw into a second Dunbanner Heavy Cavalry, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. And of course, you've always got the John Natalis, which is representing your Commander Soren. So after flooding one of your rows with these Witch Hunter and Blue Stripe Scout combos, which you would have to do after the Shile. Now that's the risky thing, though. That's the risky thing here. He needs to Shile before he plays Witch Hunter, because Shile is the mage. But that means that the Shile can draw him into Witch Hunter or Blue Stripes Commando. That's what Gravekeeper is kind of scared of here.
It's also kind of awkward because you need to kind of play Eskel and then Radovid and then Seal. Because if you're buffing Seal, you're just losing that value when you reset it with Witch Hunters.
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, Gravekeeper is put into a pretty awkward situation off that pass. Really, I mean, the Eskel in conjunction with the pass there by Nimraffel, and just forcing him to make a hard choice about whether he plays the Shawnee in round 1 and vulnerable to the pass, or whether he just like weakens his round 1 presence. Really, Nimraffel is in a pretty dominant position here.
And this is quite awkward placement. If you row stack too hard, you can get easily punished by a multitude of cards. But if you don't row stack, your Thunderbolt Potion isn't gaining value. So it's quite...
And the Horn off of Natalis as well.
We're expecting Horn to go on the Witch Hunters, and those are always going to the same row, right? Because you can't actually switch the rows.
Yeah, and we do see the Marigold's Hailstorm in Nimraffel's hands, which means it's kind of up to Gravekeeper if he's able to distribute his strength well enough to diminish the value of that Hailstorm enough to really be able to force this round. I mean, that's kind of what this is going to come down to, right? Nimraffel has the card advantage because, of course, he gave up the round for good card advantage, and Gravekeeper is playing on a round 2, which means Gravekeeper is going to put as many points on the board, and Nimraffel is basically just going to play to stay within range of a Hailstorm post-pass to take it. Ooh.
Is this going to be a pass?
Is that it?
I quite like it.
I like that a lot, actually. I mean, what do you do here if you're Nimraffel? How do you beat this in a single card?
So you almost essentially have to Henselt, but that's
you have to. I think
strong
that's the only way to do it, unless you do a YOLO Dijkstra. You don't do that Dijkstra, right? So this pass completely forces out the Henselt siege support. That's a really, really big deal. Not only are those siege supports your buff cards in a long round 3, but they're your crewmen. I mean, look at that hand from Nimraffel. He potentially might have to Shawnee for a crewman here as well. And that will get answered by an Eskel. If he Shawnees a siege support, this is a beautiful Eskel from Gravekeeper. I love both passes here.
For sure, passes were top placed by far. Now, the bad thing for Gravekeeper is
Commando. Here it comes.
Yeah, here it comes.
He's safe.
Okay.
And that's why you mulligan away that Commander Soren in that first round, because otherwise he would, he'd be sitting on both tactics here.
Yeah. Well, not really, but yeah, sure.
Well, kind of.
Kind of.
Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna see. Man. So what is this one gonna come down to? This S-kill is gonna be value. If this Shawnee does try to hit like a siege support, or even if it just plinks off one of these bronzes that are meant to gain value over time, your S-kill just one-upping their bronzes by 7 points is great value.
Now, even though Henselt is gone, and that's a lot of power gone, the same can be said for Gravekeeper. He's already used Shawnee, he has no Trollolo left, so his armor generation is actually fairly low. And
this is the Eskel of your dreams. Is this an even better Eskel? That's the only crewman. That's it. I mean, there's only one machine, but if Dijkstra pulls more machines, that's crewman down. Armor irrelevant. Siege support buffs go down.
Eskel,
huge value.
Good play. That's just great. But he does have 3 passive generators that Gravekeeper won't be able to deal with. Both players have a Hailstorm, however, I think Gravekeeper row stacks slightly harder with the Commander's Horn and the Seal buffs and whatnot.
Yeah, there could even be a second potion in the mix here as well, because if he draws into that other Thunderbolt potion, or of course the Banner Tutor to tutor it out, then he'll have to. Does he have to go for the Natalis here? I mean, he wants to Shile before the Commandos, but he can't Stennis because Stennis could draw into a Witch Hunter or a Commando. So I think he has the Natalis for reinforcement here. What do you reinforce for?
Maybe you reinforce for. No. Maybe you reinforce for.
Didn't bleed. It has to be.
Oh yeah, just elite.
Yep. So he's just doing that to give him a Shile Thunderbolt Potion target. But again, we're still sitting on that same risk. If Shile draws him either a Witch Hunter or a Blue Stripes Commando, that's it. I mean, that's just an entire card down. And that's part of the beauty of Nim Raffle's round 1 pass. I mean, just denying the opportunity to get these Commando, to get the Witch Hunter and Commando package out. Here we go. Oh.
That's rough.
Yeah.
But it's very likely to happen.
That was a 50-50, right? That was
50-50.
Yeah, 5 bad cards out of 10.
Man. Rough.
And that's Nimraffle using the downside inherent to this Witch Hunter and Commando package to just force it out. That's really great. So he has to go for a Witch Hunter here. And again, another just like awkwardness. He has to reset his own Shile. He doesn't have a choice.
I really don't like this Witch Hunter just yet. You can simply wait an additional turn and potentially you just gain like 1 to 2 more points more of value. Like say the Trebuchet hits Seal or your Natalis that's going to get reset, right? Maybe the drummers buff Trebuchet another 2 times and then you've got the reset for 3 points with the last Hunter, right? So you can gain like 1, 2, 3 points values by just maybe waiting a turn depending on how it goes.
Yeah, the Commando maybe could have come out there. So who is your money on here right now? I mean, we have Gravekeeper. There's the Witchers coming out already. So they're even on points. Gravekeeper 1 card up, but one of his cards is a 3-point bronze. And we know Nimframful's sitting on a really good Hailstorm here. A very good Hailstorm. Much better than Gravekeeper's.
Yes. I think I'd have to probably give it to Nimraffle just because of that Hailstorm wrapping so much power.
I would agree. But, I mean, the Stennis and the Dijkstra, both sides having cards that pull random cards from their deck, I mean, that might be the decider here. So the question is, will this Dijkstra be better than the last one?
If Stennis pulls a Heavy Cavalry, that's a lot of power we're looking at.
Yeah.
Also, I didn't mention this at the start of the game, and I guess it's kind of irrelevant now, but there's a Drought in Gravekeeper's deck. That wasn't there before.
Yeah,
that's
that was not there before. Yeah, that's sneaky.
And it pulls it. That goes onto the elite. That's a lot of points.
That's good road distribution. I mean, he has the Commanders run melee. This Hailstorm from Nimraffle's good, but definitely could have been better if that had gone a little differently. So he's going to play the Dijkstra here, hitting Marjoim.
Oh.
Wow.
Pretty good.
That's not bad.
Definitely
not bad at all. It's kind of what you want to hit into this late game scenario. I mean, the question he's asking himself is, which row might he Hailstorm? I mean, he's looking at the Marjo on this Redanian Knight, even though that's the biggest row, because he knows that the Khorne is always going to come out melee. The problem is, though, that he doesn't have the last play, does he?
No, he doesn't.
He has to Hailstorm after the Horn. Sorry, before the Horn.
Yeah, but the same thing could be said for Gravekeeper. Maybe he wants to keep the Horn, the Hailstorm after Nimraffle's last play, because maybe he thinks there's still some buffs, though.
Yeah, that's
He's obviously gonna see that the buffs come out here.
Yeah. So here, this has to be Hailstorm Horn. So wait, who takes it then? Who takes it? The Trebuchet is ticking. Hailstorm here, 43 down. Horn and Hailstorm almost cancel each other out. This is really close.
This is really close.
This is insanely close. Wait. Horn has more points than Hailstorm. Drummer Boys and Trebuchet all go off. That's 3 additional points. Hailstorm here. Horn for 3 points.
That's a draw?
That's a tie.
Yeah.
They're drawing.
So
that's it.
The potential.
No, it hit armor. Oh, it could have hit armor. If that hit armor, Gravekeeper had that. Or does it go through armor now? They changed it, right?
I think. Well,
I think it goes through armor now, but I'm not actually 100% sure.
Yeah, I think it goes.
Okay, so it didn't matter. Wow, a draw for the game 3. So they're actually going to replay that with those same decks.
Ooh, that's gonna be tough.
Oh,
those are amazing plays from both.
If you're these players, how do you feel about that draw? Who's relieved and who feels robbed?
I think the Gravekeeper probably feels slightly robbed just because of the 50-50 draw on Seal, right? Because he got BSC, and he's like, if I drew any other card. But that's the beauty of the plays, right? That's the beauty of the early passes.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna have to go into the final game here again to decide. That was supposed to be the final game, but we will be deciding that. But first, one more donation we got in from Gulax2, our top donator for this tournament so far, is donating $30 more and 28 cents, and his message is to get the prize pool to an even $1,000. So this is the donation that pushes our prize pool for this tournament to $1,000 for the total distribution for the finalists.
Amazing generosity.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you very much, Gulax. So we get into the rematch of the final game: Nimraffle's Hensel versus Gravekeeper's Radovid.
Who do you think takes it? The last game was really, really close.
That was a spectacular last game. Both players played that really, really well there, and it showed.
Yeah. So say we're assuming kind of like the same kind of game, except maybe if the Witch Hunters actually come out untouched this time, that could pose a problem, because that was an additional card of points, right? That Gravekeeper could have gotten. And if it was a draw, a very, very close draw at that point, or a tie even, then that additional card could prove to be difficult to deal with.
Okay, so here we have Gravekeeper going first. We're going to see the same opener, that Trollolo. Here's...
Is it going to be an Eskel?
Is there going to be that Eskel?
And if there's going to be an Eskel, is there going to be a Shakti Trollolo into pass?
Oh. I mean, and keep in mind, these have to be the same decks. In the event of a tie, there is no deck swapping like there is between matches. These are the same decks.
And they've both essentially seen each other's full decks, so...
Yeah, we have not, however, seen the Drought in Gravekeeper. The Drought for Nimraffle is still a surprise. That being said, he hasn't drawn it yet, so the Drought may only happen in a kind of longer round. And there's that Taller. Now that makes you ask.
Yeah.
I mean, but Gravekeeper has seen most of the decks. Does he know? And he's passing. That's a brave pass. The Igni takes us in a single card.
Igni doesn't. It doesn't hit. Dispatch.
Okay. No, you're right. Wow. Yeah, I mean, that's what takes us. There's nothing that takes us, right?
Scorch draws it.
Yeah, he has to play 2 cards down here. He's gonna have to play the second card after the pass.
An interesting note: if say you have a Scourge here, would you play it and go into a tie and just play from there? Would you ever make that play?
It's probably better to just go an additional card down. I mean, there's a consideration to take an unnecessary tie. I mean, the question is who benefits more from the long round 3. So he's going to go 2 cards down. He's going to expend the Witches here, getting some good thinning out, and he'll play an additional card here. Now, we say 2 cards down, but at the same time, I mean, what this does represent is it's still the same kind of typical standard win round 1 condition that you see, right? It's the winner of round 1 going 1 card down against the loser, and no carryover being present on either side of the board, right? So winning the coin flip kind of allows him to go 2 cards down, without really losing more than, you know, the standard round 1 opener here. So he's still fine.
I think Nimraffle actually gains here because he knows his opponent is running Witch Hunters and BSCs, and those are really, really bad draws, whereas his deck actually has 3 Hansel targets, so you're not kind of like worried that your Hansel will be as dead, right? So maybe there's going to be just a insta-pass,
That is that insta-pass. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And like you're saying, I mean, that taller then is kind of the equivalent of a pass because it forces that round out the same exact way, the same exact as before. It forces that round out before the Witch Hunters can come out. And that means dead Witch Hunter draws, potentially.
And Nimraffle doesn't have the Witchers as dead draws anymore. He's essentially almost dead draw immune.
Yep.
Well, currently, actually, with his hand, he is completely.
So we see here Gravekeeper has some dead cards. He has a Reinforcement, Brix Natalis. Oh, so he has to send one back, but he has the Tutor. The question is, so he sends back a Thunderbolt Potion, and then...
Oh, that's risky.
Does he just... He's fine to sit on this? He can. He has the Banner Tutor. So he lost his Banner Tutor by doing that.
Yeah, that was very risky.
Yeah.
If he had drawn like BSC or something, I mean, I guess.
Well, he still has the Tutor either way.
Yeah, I guess he's got the Tutor either way. Maybe so just looking for the.
We're gonna see here the Shawnee for that Trololo, age-old, and again
Eskel
being shot down by this Eskel. Huge Eskels. Eskel is a
it's even rougher
fantastic.
Because
yeah.
The first game, Eskel hit just Trololo. This time it essentially also kills the 5 additional armor from Shawnee. So it's even more powerful. That's brutal.
Yeah, and the Witchers helped that happen. That thinning that got out, drawing into the Eskel. I mean, that's so hard to deal with. That amount of swing.
One consideration: would they actually value more? Do you value the drummers or the trebuchets more as your Hansel target? Does it matter in this matchup? Seeing as you've already seen the Hailstorm.
I guess I mean, so both players know that both players are on Hailstorm, but Nimraffle knows that Hailstorm isn't in his hand. So Nimraffle wants the Trebuchet as a Hansel target.
Probably,
Well, he thinks he wants the Trebuchet, but in reality it doesn't matter because neither player has the Hailstorm.
That's just great. There is Dijkstra though. And Dijkstra can.
That's true as well. So we see this Witch Hunter combo just, you know, basically sucking out 18 points of bronze value. What do you think about this Marjo coming out from Nimraffle's hand? The same as last game. I mean, what do you do with that? You basically just get value.
It's probably just gonna hit something that gets Commander
heavy cavalry. Or Commander Storm.
Or heavy cavalry, yeah.
Probably heavy cavalry, actually, or a repeat potion target. So we see here a pretty valuable Radovid. And this will lock their crewmen as well. So again, Nimraffle has to use the crewman from Hansel. He has to get that Hansel crewman. This is something that wasn't the case last time because he didn't have Hansel for round 3. But Hansel does have that crewman, so he still is able to get the reinforced ballistas here.
He also still has a third Reaver Scout into a third support, so that's a second crewman available to him.
Yep.
And it actually interests me that he didn't go for it here. Maybe he wants to use it on the drummer instead. Interesting.
So he looks like he might want to go for an early Stennis. Early Stennis is pulling between Elite and Cavalry. Goes for the Cavalry. Just a very high tempo play that develops a little bit of armor.
Very good. Just strong, powerful play. Maybe Elite is his next play. Probably going to play Natalis into Reinforcement before Seal. And I'm expecting him to double buff the Elite to be able to trigger its ability twice. And we see the Hansel on Trebuchets.
Okay, I mean, it's going to come down to that, right? I mean, it's going to come down... Who has the advantage here? Because Gravekeeper's sitting on more points. He's got a great hand. But the value over time from Nimraffle is something that Gravekeeper just doesn't have. Like, the Drummer Boys and these Trebuchets are a lot of extra points.
So the unfortunate thing is his Shani doesn't actually have a good target though. It only hits a reinforced ballista, which is an 11. It's not amazing.
Yep.
Interesting. He actually doesn't go for the elite trigger.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's trying. So what he's doing is he's thinning. He's looking at his deck. 4 cards left: Eskel, Drought, Hailstorm. He wants that Hailstorm, and if he gets the Eskel or the Drought, he wants them sooner rather than later. So he's gonna Shilate early, and by playing this out, he's allowing himself to Shilate early, increasing the odds of drawing into this Drought. If he hits this Drought, that is huge.
That is most definitely huge.
And there's the Eskel. It's still a play that you want earlier rather than later. It's still gonna accumulate value over time by denying that same value over time.
For sure. It's gonna end up being about a 19-point Eskel on the drummers.
Yep. Yeah. Or the again, so he doesn't know that his opponent doesn't have Hailstorm, so he would rather hit the Trebuchet? No, he'd sorry.
The drummer.
The drummer, yeah.
It's small point differences, but 1 point would have won the last game, right? So you have to consider them, for sure.
Yeah.
He is up
Every
40
point
points,
matters.
however, so 40 points
That's
is
a big deal. I don't know if Nimraffle is going to be able to pull this one through. I mean, the hand from Gravekeeper is great. 40 points is too much. Nimraffle's hand is pretty crippled by comparison. As you said, the Shani's not great. Value over time is great, but unless he's pulling something...
Now the Shani is good. Before it was a reinforced, now it's slightly
that's
better,
true
maybe.
As well.
Maybe
so
slightly.
he needs to Jigstra into Hailstorm, right? Nimraffle has to Dijkstra into Hailstorm. I think that's his only option.
Oh, Dijkstra does like pulling out 40 points randomly.
If this Dijkstra pulls something like Natalis into Horn and then Hailstorm, that could be it. But does Gravekeeper have the game if this Dijkstra doesn't pull it through for Nimraffle?
I think so. Like, I think the Dijkstra has to be insane for him to win. Because what he's got in hand isn't amazing. It's 211 power bronzes. It's a Medrodome that hits for 8 or so.
Yeah. Yeah, the Marjo just isn't incredible here. We're going to see this commander, the Thunderbolt here. Interestingly enough, he kind of needs to Thunderbolt that because these Trebuchets, if they kill those ones, that means he can only Commander Soren the row that's vulnerable to Hailstorm, which he can't do.
That would be brutal. Oof. This is going to be close.
Yeah, I mean, it's just going to come down to this Dijkstra. Like, that's it. Like, Dijkstra, if Dijkstra pulls Hailstorm, what does it need to pull in addition to Hailstorm, though?
I'm not sure if it has to pull much, honestly.
Yeah, Hailstorm plus anything decent. I mean, the value over time from Nimraffle, 5 points a turn. That is almost the effect of a Drought / Ragnarok, right? Just these little bronzes plinking away. 5 points every turn. Every turn.
Oh, it doesn't hit the BSC, so Commander Soren can still go front row.
That's a big deal. That is actually a really big deal. That's an extra 4 points.
Would you actually, like Commander Soren for 16 instead of 20? If you were that afraid.
Yeah, you would. That's your lose condition. You have to play assuming he has Hailstorm, because if he doesn't, you kind of win anyway, right?
For sure. This is gonna be pretty exciting with that Dijkstra. It all comes down to him.
Yep. Okay, so here's the Marjo on the the Elite. Here's the Commander Soren on that melee row. It has to be. And here's this Dijkstra. Okay.
Dijkstra into mid-row? Melee row?
Yeah, melee row.
Depends on how
it doesn't.
Trebuchet's
I don't think it. Yeah. Okay. He needs Hailstorm and something juicy, or maybe even Natalis and something juicy might be enough. There's Hailstorm. He hits Hailstorm. He Dijkstras and he hits the right row, and then Commander he takes it. Nimraffle with mashed potatoes after that amazing tie for the third game, is going to take it after that Dijkstra into the Hailstorm and Commander's Horn in the 6th game of the series. Nimraffle with mashed potatoes is advancing. That is...
That's why you run Dijkstra, and that's why Dijkstra's amazing.
No RNG in Gwent. Oh my god. That is an incredible finish to an incredible series. Man, I'd love to hear what our hosts Jaggerus and Ocean Mud have to say about that. What do you guys have to say?
Wow, thank you for that great cast, Swimming Cat Crash Overlord. What a set, Jaggerus. I know last time you casted Jaggerus, you said that you always like to see a set go 5 games because it's more interesting. Well, what did you think about this?
Oh man, I feel so blessed. We got 6 games, and you know, we saw some crazy Dijkstra plays. This is gonna make chat so mad. I feel like this is the kind of thing that makes Reddit so mad. They hate RNG. They hate it with a passion, but you gotta admit, it made for some exciting games. I mean, we saw it result in a tie on game 5 and then completely swing things on game 6. But beyond that, what did you think of the kind of decks that people brought now that we have the new patch?
I think that's an interesting point. I did have some concerns with mashed potatoes whenever they were up 2-1. I saw that Nimrafel, he was playing the Witchers, and usually what Crash was saying is that those 3 slots are kind of tight because silver spots are the most contested, and we actually saw that play into effect when he kept the Witchers, because he drew them back to back round 2 and round 3, and it lost him an entire card in terms of power. It essentially locked mashed potatoes out of the game. It brings mashed potatoes to 4-1. It guarantees them a spot in single elimination playoffs and takes 6th faction to 3-2, which puts them on the brink of elimination. Overall, I think they both put in a great effort, and we'll see what they can do moving forward.
Oh, definitely. I think that Arid surprised me. I'm going to put that one out there. I had 0 faith in Arid, and both Arid decks, I believe, beat Northern Realms decks, which was kind of the crazy thing. You know, everyone's going on about how strong Northern Realms is, you know, after Scoia'tael, and now with the hotfix, everyone's saying Northern Realms is the one to kind of keep an eye on. But we saw some interesting kind of weather strategies coming out. We saw Reveal, we saw Spies. Like, it's clearly not been predetermined what decks people are bringing. You know, we saw machines and we saw armor, so I think people are trying out different things and trying to see what works out, and ultimately mashed potatoes did come out on top. So your prediction was correct. Congratulations.
Thank you. And I'm taking notes with Arid. So when Insingfa on Faction 6 was running Igni, it feels really great to see Arid getting some representation in a tournament format.
He's the best monster, apparently. No Dagon, no Unseen Elder. It's Arid all the way. The other thing I guess to mention is shout outs to all of the people who did donate. We hit, what, $1,000 now in total prize pooling?
Oh, that's right. We are currently at $1,000 total. And hitting that $1,000, it's a landmark goal, as the original prize pool, as everyone knows, was $200. So for those that are enjoying the tournament, all the proceeds donated do go directly to the prize pool. It helps to make the Gwentlemen tournament one of the biggest to date, and it also shows how much the community cares about helping players that have invested into the game, giving them a platform to build upon moving forward. And so let's go ahead and take a brief intermission before our next match. It's going to be Ask Gwent Alba, Team Shoot, both standing at 3-1 with whoever wins solidifying their spot in the playoffs. Stay tuned, guys. You're not going to want...
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. And I think I saw a couple squid in the chat as well. Welcome to TGI Week 5, Series 2. Oceanmud, who are we going to see play?
Well, it looks like we're up against Team Alba, Gwent Alba, and Team Shoop. They're both standing at 3-1, with whoever wins solidifying their spot in the playoffs. I'm really excited to see Team Shoop. They have a lot of prominent streamers. You have the captain, Joe Snow. You have Adam Nadrak, and you have Artuza. Joe Snow is actually, like I said, the captain, but a lot of viewers have probably watched him, and he became very popular when he mastered monsters, Arid and Dagon, before the new patch hit, when it was quite strong. I'm excited to see how Team Shoop matches up against the newer team, Gwent Alba.
Oh, definitely. I mean, Joe Snow is known for his monsters. He's one of those players as of last patch. But the question is, how well can these players adapt? Whereas Team Alba, they're maybe not so known in terms of streaming, but they are known, at least on GwentDB, if you actually pay attention to who's posting those decks that you are, in fact, net decking. We have Sidokaz, Sippy, and Sinan basically making up their team. And, you know, their track record goes to show that both of these teams do kind of know what they're doing when it comes to Gwent. But the question is, which of these teams do you think will better adapt to a patch?
Right, that's a good point. It's almost like considering this is like a monster mash, because Joe Snow and Nadrak both are pretty famous for their monster players. But what people may not know is I actually was talking on Discord with Sipwi, and he actually made a monster deck as well. And so I actually used that off stream to climb pretty high. So I personally, I got to go with my fanboy. I got to go with Team Shoop. But Gwent Alba, they're not going to go down without a fight.
See, I'm the complete opposite for you, because Alba, here's a fun fact for all you people in the chat, Alba in Scottish Gaelic actually means Scotland. So technically Gwent is Gwent Scotland to me, and as a Scottish lassie, I think I have to cheer for Gwent Alba. I realize this is a completely arbitrary reason, but also I think it's always good to see names that aren't so well known in the community shine, and I have faith that Sidokaz, Sippy, and Sinan will, you know, put up a good fight.
Sure. You know what? I might be a little biased because I watched the stream so much with Joe Snow and Nadrak, but I am happy, and I think I will stick with my choice of Team Shoop. Best of luck to both of them, though.
Sounds good, and without further ado, let's get into these games as we hang over to the lovely A- and Impetuous Panda, who will be your casters for the next series.
Hey guys, Panda here. I'll be casting the second series of TGI Week 5 with my friend A-. It's going to be a really good series, I think. We have two very strong teams, some with obviously very well-known streamers like Nadrak and Joe Snow and Team Shoop, and then Askwa and Alba, also very good deck builders. So I think it's going to be an interesting match. What do you think, A-?
Yeah, I'm very excited for this series here. We've got definitely two very strong teams. I personally know a lot of Team Shoop on watching their streams and enjoying their content, but also the Askwa and Alba team I've known quite a lot through Discord, and a lot of them are very well known for their deck building guides, and they're very strong players in general as well. So yeah, I'm really hyped for this match.
Especially with the new patch, it's going to be new decks, and just the deck building is really going to shine. I think the better deck builders are going to have the test and see what decks they can come up with in just a few days with this new Week 5 TGI matches. So it's going to be interesting to see not just the gameplay, the execution, but also the deck building skills coming into play more in this week than any other week till now, I think. So I think we're ready to go straight into the first game, see what leaders we have, see who's playing, and let's see. We have Nadrak against Sinan, so Morvran against Foltest, two leaders that are maybe not as expected. Morvran isn't, I think, considered the strongest Nilfgaard leader right now. What do you think?
Yeah, we haven't really seen that much of Morvran basically over the past patches of open beta, but now with the addition of the new spotters with the last patch, a lot of people have started playing this reveal deck. Along with, it usually encounters Leo Bonhart, which we see there in the hand, and then a round 3 finisher, spotters in the actual vanilla Geralt with the 13 base power. So yeah, it's definitely a strong deck at the moment, and I'm hyped to see what it'll bring for this series.
Yeah, there's some new synergies for sure. I think Reveal in general got a bit of a change. It's not, didn't just get nerfs or buffs, it got changed altogether, some of the synergies and how cards worked. So it's going to be interesting to see how these cards work at a competitive level. Obviously, this match is kind of do or die for both teams. They both want to secure that playoff spot as soon as possible to try and climb to the top 16 of this TGI Invitational. So let's see if they can do it in this game one. It's going to be an important game always. The first game, whoever wins it has that bit of an edge going into the next few matchups. So we'll see who can come out with the win here. Sinan does have Foltest, which is also an interesting leader choice, I think. I think Radovid and Hensel are normally favored in this patch for what I've seen till now in ladder, because they have very explosiveness from Hensel and then also a lot of control from Radovid. But we'll see how much value you can get out of Foltest and if it's really worth it in the end for Sinan.
Yeah, definitely. The Foltest change I really like from this patch was that the fact it can actually buff the board now, so you're not forced into that round 1 play of just slamming down Foltest and then expecting your opponent to answer that. So yeah, it's definitely a lot more versatile now. Rather than the changes to Hensel that have sort of made it less versatile with the changes to how it works with Temerian units and different units now that it can't hit from before. So yeah, we definitely see this Foltest definitely bringing out a lot of power on the board.
Yeah, that is true, and also a lot of leaders got changed. King Bran as well, where he has veteran now, so they want to make it so it's not always like turn 1, round 1 play, like just throw out the leader. I want to make a bit more versatile and have you be able to play the cards a bit differently now. Yeah,
so we see the Blue Stripe Scout coming out from the Foltest player, just trying to get that the points building up from these units, seeing as he'll run a lot of Temerian units that will be of that strength, so stuff like infantrymen, stuff like Blue Stripes Scouts and Blue Stripes Commandos, which will then gain points throughout the rounds and also invest into further rounds. So what do you think about this Morvran play? So he didn't actually reveal all his foot soldiers here, he chose to reveal 3 of his opponent's units and just 1 of his foot soldiers. What do you think about that?
I think first we have to comment on the golems, the big change they got, and the fact that now they're pretty much reveal cards now, and especially with Morvran, they have great synergy. And it's always important to just get that out, the golems out as soon as possible before you start thinning into your deck. So I think that's why he did the 3 reveals. He wanted to thin out all the golems first before drawing into cards with the foot soldiers, just to make sure he didn't draw into any golems. So like with King Bran last patch where you had to hit Sarius first, I think it's the same ordering or sequencing effects now where you have to hit 3 of opponent's cards first to draw the golems and then your foot soldier, which is why he couldn't do 2 of the foot soldiers, I believe. We do see Foltest just getting all their cards out where they start boosting all their units and just getting that slow snowball effect going straight on.
Yeah, definitely. Also, one thing to mention is the introduction of Marigold's Hailstorm to this reveal deck that we see in the far left there. We've seen like a lot of this Marigold's Hailstorm in most decks in the current patch, and it's just because the infinite power it can force someone into, with the combinations of also like full board weathers that we've seen, can force someone to row stack, and then they play into the Marigold's Hailstorm and get such a large value from that Marigold's Hailstorm, which we've seen in most decks current into this patch. So I'm excited to see if like a lot of people have chose to use this Marigold's Hailstorm in all their decks, or whether they're just choosing it in certain ones as a tech choice.
Yeah, we see the Cynthia there not getting much power, only a 10-point Cynthia. Bit of a sad Cynthia. You normally see much higher Cynthias, but in this case it was a bit of a letdown. But yeah, like you're saying, the power creep in general with the bronze units makes Marigold's Hailstorm a very good card, because just as power rises, it just gains more value. So it's definitely benefiting from this huge bronze unit power creep this patch.
Yeah, so we do see the you carry.
Fultist just bringing out all his units. He wants to get the big buff with the Fultist, and he just want to, get all his cards out, all his commanders out of his deck, get the thinning going as well, and make sure they're going streamlined into round 2 and 3, just having, both of them thinning with golems and the commandos. So they're making sure their decks are going to be as consistent as possible to get those good top decks round 2 and 3. But yeah, Cynthia, as I said before, not the greatest Cynthia. Bit of a letdown, I think, for Nadrak, and I guess he expected a bit more tempo from it, so it's kind of bad on his side, but he's still ahead here, and he did win the coin flip, so he isn't too worried, I think. Yeah,
we expect to. So we see the Stefan Skellen come out here, and that was the Vatier, if I remember correctly, that he put on top of his deck.
Mm-hmm.
So he may be looking for some sort of a Cantarella to pull that Vatier next turn, or some sort of reveal on his foot soldiers, maybe to draw that Vatier to get the extra power in that round 1 to bully his opponent out, or draw some more cards out of him.
Yeah, he wants to get his reveals, going as soon as possible and get the cycle going and drawing his best cards. And Stefan does that. Stefan can, get the good card up on your deck, and you can draw it instantly, pretty much. So it just gives Nadrak even more consistency, which is what he wants in this round 1, just trying to thin his deck out and get a lot of consistency going to the next few rounds. And as long as he's ahead of tempo here, because he won the coin flip, he's still fine. So he's not super worried. And also, St. Anne's plays haven't been, super oppressive in terms of tempo. So he's still, I think, pretty relaxed going into this one.
Yeah, for sure. The only thing we have with Nadrak's hand at the moment is he does have a spotter in, but with the change to spotter, it now only will go for revealed units, so you can only gain the power of those revealed units. So the unfortunate thing with Nadrak's hand now is that he actually has no revealed units. So if this round goes down to, say, 2 or 3 cards, he's not going to be able to use that spotter, so he may be taken out of the round due to that card being in his hand. So we see the Cantarella coming out from Nadrak here, and getting that Vatier out, which is going to be a great power play next round or a few rounds in. So what do you think about that, Panda?
Yeah, the Cantarella here, when you win the coin flip, is just bullies your opponent into either having a spy to answer back, having to pass and give up the round immediately, because if not, you'd go 2 cards down, and as most of us know, card advantage is fairly important in this game of Gwent, and obviously going 2 cards down isn't ideal going into round 2 or 3. So he's forced him to pass here. So it's a bully spy, really, because he can't answer back. He doesn't have his own spy, I assume. And we do have the Marigold's Hailstorm, which is more than enough to win it here, and secure this round on even cards, which, as we all know, is a very important thing to do, because it does allow for the dry pass in round 2 and the extra card in round 3, which in most cases, even if you have a bad hand quality in terms of cards, it's still enough to win the game. So we'll see what ends up happening here, but the coin flip and the spy did give Nadrak an edge in this game, and he is going to, I think, be the favorite going into this round 3, or he might just bleed round 2, who knows.
Yes, definitely. There is definitely a way he can bleed this round 2 out of, which... Actually, that's a good question. Which one is actually favoured in this long round? Do we want a long round 3 for the Northern Realms deck, or do we want the long round 3 for the Nilfgaard deck?
It has to depend what Northern Realms is running, because I do know that a lot of Northern Realm decks they can obviously create quite a bit of tempo with a lot of snowball cards like siege supports and trebuchets, and they have a lot of cards that have, you know, every turn do X effect. So it depends on what Northern Realms C9 is running, because it's normally dangerous to, you know, play long rounds into decks that optimize value over long rounds, like weather decks, or, you know, decks that have a lot of snowball units. So we'll have to see what exactly C9 brought to the table here. And I think Nadrak just wants to get the card advantage no matter what. I don't think he might not be favored in a long round, but the card advantage is almost too good to pass up, so he does go for the dry pass here.
Yeah, definitely. Having that one card up in round 3 is definitely giving Nadrak a huge edge over Sinan at the moment. Let's see what Sinan chooses to throw out in this round 2, just to gain those points to win the round. With only 17 seconds, he's definitely taking his time to choose this.
Yeah, he wants to throw out his least valuable card. Like anything he thinks is not going to get him enough value next turn, that's what he wants to throw out. And sometimes it's a hard choice to make, because you have to think about, you know, what you're playing against. If you have, maybe he has Shawnee and you want to get a good Shawnee target, you know, or a Neki, for example. I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into when you get dry passed into what card you pour out on the table, because it really doesn't matter. You just need one, you know, a single point of strength does it. So it's always a hard choice sometimes. Yeah,
and we actually see the Reaver Hunter coming out from Sinan. Those cards, the Reaver Hunters, I haven't seen this patch yet, and a lot of people are down turning on the Reaver Hunters at the moment, just because of that the trio was removed. So now they won't, after the trio is played, they won't hit the highest unit on the enemy side and half that unit's strength. So they're only the buff. They only have the buff part on them now, so a lot of people think they're a lot weaker and have chosen to remove them from their decks, but Sinan seems to have kept them in, and he definitely likes them at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, if you see, the operator was revealed in round 1, so maybe Nadrak had, you know, some kind of inkling that was going to happen, because there aren't that many units you want to operate in Northern Realms at the moment, I think, that would favor you and wouldn't favor your opponent, because most of the units are just, you know, siege support, buff everything that gets played, so that favors everyone, kind of. So, I mean, the fact that Reaver Hunters are in this deck maybe doesn't surprise Nadrak that much. Maybe he knew it was coming because he did see that operator round 1, or maybe he didn't read into it, because like you said, they haven't been played. I haven't seen any Reaver Hunters at all in ladder at all at this patch, so maybe Nadrak wasn't expecting that, but I did give him a lot of key information that he might play this round differently, now knowing that his opponent is playing Reaver Hunters.
Yeah, exactly. So we see the Drain Knight coming out from Sinan. This is pretty much going to be a sorted round 3 for Nadrak. He knows his sequencing. He can play those mangonels out when he wants to activate the reveal synergies he has in his hand with the Vatier and such, so he can get those points ticking. Although with this Redanian Knight on the board, if these mangonels are hitting the Redanian Knights, they're actually going to buff the Redanian Knights, which may be a problem for Nadrak in this matchup. But definitely a good tech from Sinan to have those Redanian Knights in against those mangonels.
Yeah, they're good against a lot of things. Any unit that pings is good against, or Redanian Knights are good against them, weather as well. So they're obviously a choice that you have to make going into a kind of a blind best of 5 or best of 3 matchup. Best of 5, I mean, you have to like kind of tech your deck towards a lot of stuff, and this kind of plays around weather as well. So it's an interesting card to see for sure. I haven't seen too many of these in ladder, but we do see that Nadrak has a pretty good hand. I mean, he has a decent amount of gold, he has the mangonels, he has the spotters, he has the cycling with the foot soldiers. So do you think he's really all too worried right now, or do you think he's fine considering he had card advantages while going into this round?
I think he's definitely in a good spot at the moment. He has his plan sorted out. He can play around his opponent's strategies quite well. Although the only problem is he hasn't got a great target for the spotters to hit. He'll have to hit that Nilfgaardian Knight, so we'll probably say that his last 3 cards will probably end up being the Nilfgaardian Knight and the 2 spotters there, unless when he reveals these Dale and foot soldiers from the Vatier, he may draw into something bigger and be able to get more points on those spotters.
We do see some solid control with the Deathmold that is able to counter that Mangonel, and you might just see, as you know, a 10-point play, 3+7 with the Thunder, but really, since it's taken away so much value from the Mangonel, it's much more than that because of the value. It also counters or disables for the next few turns, so it's obviously definitely worth it, I think, for Sinan to do that play and get that. It's not just a 7-strength Thunder, pretty much.
Yeah, definitely. It removes a lot of potential value from that damage. So I wonder what we see here from Sinan. His deck's gonna have to put out these Reaver Hunters pretty soonish, yes. So you see here, he's probably going to put out this operator and then copy a Reaver Hunter. So he wants to get the max amount of Reaver Hunters as possible, because obviously they buff each other retroactively, and that will make for a better finisher for this round 3. So what do you think about this Nilfgaard ending here? Do you want to see more of a reserved call from Nadrak to save those spotters until last, or should he try and get those reveals out and get those spotters down quicker?
I mean, he has the extra Mangonel he just drew into. He drew into another Knight, so I mean, it's not looking too bad for him, I think. I think it's looking pretty good. We're going to see what he wants to use with Leo Bonhart, though, as well. And we do see a Commander's Horn being revealed. And because Nadrak doesn't have the Marigold Tailstorm, he used it round 1 to force that pass early and the card advantage round 2 with the dry pass. He's gonna miss out on that card. He doesn't have a way to revive it, obviously. He doesn't have, a Gleiss or something like that. So the Commander Horn is gonna get full value pretty much, and that's a lot of value for a silver. 20 points. Yeah,
definitely. 20 points is a huge value for a silver card. And the fact that Marigold's Hailstorm isn't in the hand of Nadrak anymore, the Commander's Horn definitely doesn't have any answer really to it. So we see the second operator from that summoning circle. Wow, we're going to copy 2 Reaver Hunters for Sinan there. He's going to have a lot of power to put down in this round 3 with those Reaver Hunters now.
Yeah, Summoning Circle is, I mean, for lack of a better word, a very interesting card this patch. Some very odd stuff is happening in certain games with, 5 spies, 2 operators. I mean, it's going to get pretty crazy. And I think these are things that aren't as intended in a balanced patch. Like, you don't intend it to have, 5 Reaver Hunters in one round. So it's going to be interesting to see how this round plays out. But that's definitely something you don't see every day, 2 operators. And I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how much power those Reaver Hunters climb to, because it is exponential pretty much. Even though they don't have the trio effect, they're still boosting themselves by quite a bit of points. So we'll see how it turns out.
Yeah, but also we've got to think about Nadrak from Team Shoop here actually having the 2 Reaver Hunters here. So the card that you usually try and give a person with operator is usually good for you and then bad for the opponent, but here he's actually got 2 Reaver Hunters, so they will actually help each other and help Nadrak have less of a dead hand with those 2 Reaver Hunters in his hand.
Yeah, well, 2 is always better than 1, that's for sure, but I think it's not an ideal play for Nadrak. I don't think it's just his image of a good round 3 having to play 2 Reaver Hunters from hand, but we'll see how it ends up. I mean, he does still have the card advantage. He is still a card up and just 7 points behind, so maybe this is going to be a new archetype Reaver Hunter Nilfgaard, who knows, but I think the 2 Reaver Hunters from hand isn't going to be enough to really just justify playing them from hand. It's just not enough value compared to the rest of his hand, really, or what he expects to have as average value over round 3. So we'll see how it ends up happening. But we do see Shawnee and Dijkstra, which are 2 big plays for Sinan as well. So his hand's not looking too bad. We're waiting on the next few reveals to see the rest of his cards, but we see 2 golds. That's good enough to scare us at least.
Oh yeah, definitely. Having those golds in hand is definitely key for the round 3. You want to get golds out as much as possible in round 3, so that you have the most power on board. Now we see that Nadrak here actually has, how many reveals does he have in his hand? He has 3 potential reveals in his hand. So we're going to see a lot of value coming out from these mangonels. How much do you think this will affect Sinan in his round 3 with these mangonels?
I mean, I don't think there's a chance of him sniping a Reaver Hunter. That would be too crazy, I think. There's not. I mean, it's barely low odds, and there's no way for him to lock. I mean, you can, because of the armor from Shawnee, he's going to have a hard time killing that Reaver Hunter as well. So, I mean, if he can kill, I mean, even if he kills a Reaver Hunter, it doesn't matter, right? Because the trio effect's not going off anyway after the patch. So it's not too important anymore, regardless. They still get the boosts off. So, I mean, if he gets all the Reaver Hunters off, which he might not, I don't know if he's playing, Reaver Scouts or what he's playing. Maybe he does get them off, but
yeah, definitely. He also has that Dijkstra there. If they are the rest of them in his deck, he can definitely try and pull them off that Dijkstra and definitely get a huge power boost from that. Now, what do you think about this? What do you think he has, Sinan? What do you think he has left in his hand? So we know he's got at least 1 Reaver Hunter, definitely. What else do you think he has?
Well, I mean, he's probably going to have gold, I guess. I mean, cause even if the fact that Leo killed that Reaver Hunter, it makes it so it doesn't get boosted. So you're still taking away some value from it, obviously. But I don't know. I mean, because there's no trio effect anymore, so it's not like old patch where it mattered a lot more to lock or to kill those Reaver Hunters early. So I don't know if that. Do you think that was the correct play to make, to kill that Reaver Hunter, because it had 5 armor, so you're kind of losing 5 strength there as well. You know what I mean?
I think it's probably he's fallen into that mindset, Nadrak, of last patch, I guess. So he hasn't succumbed to the fact that the Reaver Hunters have changed, and he's still on that mindset of kill those Reaver Hunters, get those points off board as fast as you can, and then it'll deny the strategy of Sinan and then disrupt him enough to be able to win the game. So maybe he's still in that mindset, but it's also still, I think, the correct play in this situation, seeing as he could have got that 10 value from that, maybe hitting that 11 strength infantryman, but I definitely feel it's probably about a similar strength gain from killing that Reaver Hunter as well, if he has a lot of Reaver Hunters to play.
Yeah, we see a Thaler here, which isn't normally the ideal Dijkstra draw. It's not what you want to get. We do know he has at least another Reaver Hunter from hand. Sinan, because he has to operate one, and then he has 2 copies as well, so it's 3 total in hand that can't be drawn from the deck with Dijkstra or Reaver Scouts or whatever, but we do see a Dijkstra pulling one of them, so he is getting that boost still, and he is still 1 point behind and a card down, so it's not looking too great for Sinan unless he can really step it up in these last few cards and get a lot of value out of them, to be honest.
Yeah, so we see here Nadrak actually has to play these spotters out first, otherwise he will risk not being able to reveal another Nilfgaardian Knight to trigger the spotters, I guess. Otherwise, although if he plays the unrevealed one, he could reveal a spotter, which then would be able to hit the other Nilfgaardian Knight in his hand. Yeah, so we see the spotters coming out now. He's pretty safe now. All we can think of is that the Sinan will have maybe Igni as one of his golds, so he maybe wants to try and play around that, so he'll play these spotters on different rows and try and deny the huge Igni value that you could get with the double spotters.
I mean, Igni's not really a card you see too much right now, I think, because of the 25s, but maybe you're right. Maybe we are going to see Igni here. I mean, I haven't seen it at all in ladder, really, or not too much. It's always surprising when you do see it because you're not really playing around it too much after the, I guess, nerfs to it. But because of the power creep with the bronze units, it's kind of easier to get to 25 in a row, so maybe it's still quite viable for competitive play, especially with punishing different cards. But it does take away value from Marigold, which is a very used card right now, I think, in the current meta.
Oh yeah, for sure. But we didn't see the Dandelion coming out of Sinan there. That's a card that I haven't seen since this patch here, because the deploy value of the Dandelion doesn't really get that much value, seeing as he's not actually going to be able to draw those cards unless he has obviously the Reaver Scout in his hand. But he's definitely not going to get that full value out of that Dandelion at the moment because he won't be able to draw those 3 cards that he will have buffed. So we've got Nadrak with the 20 points left in his hand, so that'll put him up to 133, and then we'll see if Sinan can answer that.
I mean, the Reaper Hunters are going to have quite a bit of exponential growth right now if he does have 2 more in hand or a way to draw 2 of them. We're going to see the Dandelion buffs get, any kind of, because he has to have a card to bring out. He already played Dijkstra, so he buffed a lot of things, but what is he going to use to pull those cards out that got buffs, or are those buffs just wasted in a way? We see the reveal coming out, Mangonel's getting some more damage, we see the Reaper Hunters, and it is going to be enough by a single point.
We see the 1 point win out there, the Reaver Hunters.
And of course it was correct. It was correct to kill the Reaver Hunters because they don't grow by 1 point for everyone that's played it. It is an exponential growth, so we were incorrect in saying that it maybe wasn't correct to hit it because it does grow much more than 1 for every Reaver Hunter played after it because it is exponential for each one on the board already. So it was definitely correct to hit that the 5 strength Reaver Hunter at the start, but it still wasn't enough to win that game. A single point separated Nadrak from victory there, and it just wasn't enough. The exponential growth was just way too much for the Reaver Hunters. I think the double operator really sealed the deal there. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. That was such an amazing game to see. The double operator definitely was a big hit on the on Nadrak's deck size, because otherwise the operator on the Reaver Hunters wouldn't have got that much value from the summoning. He needed that summoning circle on that second operator, otherwise the Reaver Hunters wouldn't have got that much value and to bring it to that 1 point win. But it's definitely exciting to see another 1 point win today, and yeah, it's going to be exciting as we go on.
'I mean, the Reaper Hunters are going to have quite a bit of exponential growth right now if he does have 2 more in hand or a way to draw 2 of them. We're going to see the Dandelion buffs get, any kind of because he has to have a card to bring out that Yeah, I guess in the end, definitely bringing back the Reaver Hunters, showing everyone that they are still viable, especially with the double operators with Summoning Circle. Definitely a play to watch out for, because units in general that grow with exponential play, like Reaver Hunters, make it so that the more you get, it's just not just one more Reaver Hunter, it's a lot more than that. And we saw the power of the Reaver Hunters there, and what the power levels they grow to as bronze units. So I think the double operator definitely sealed the deal there, and gave Sin on that win, even if he was a card down going to round 3, which is the thing we have to remember. He was a card down going to round 3 because of the dry pass round 2 from Nadrak. So even then, he still was able to get into that and win that. So I mean, that's pretty impressive, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure. So we get into this this second game here against Sidokaz and Is it Sidokaz and Nadrak?
Yeah, we're seeing Sidokaz with Crack, and Nadrak is bringing Morbrim back. Gonna keep on revealing, see what he can reveal here, and see if he can get a win this time with his reveal deck, which he's powerful. It got 133 points in that long round 3, but this just wasn't enough by a single point to win the game. We'll see here if Coin Flip and Spy favors him as well, because he did get quite lucky that last game, having both those things going for him in round 1. We'll see what happens here with the Coin Flip and the Spy situation for both players, because it is really important, I think, to keep note of that. And just to analyze the card advantage situation for both players throughout the game.
Oh yeah, definitely. The card advantage definitely helped him last game to win that round, to stay in that round, but unfortunately it just wasn't enough for him. So we see actually Sidokaz bringing Crack this time. So this is probably the Greatsword variant that we have seen quite a lot on ladder, where you use the combination of the long ships and the Greatswords, the new cards, which will, once they're damaged, they have a 2-turn timer, which will reset them and then strengthen them by 2. And they are not regressing as well, so they're a very good res target for round 3 for that power play. So what do you think about this SK deck, Panda?
Yeah, it's an interesting deck, because unlike the Hunters from 2 patches ago when Crack was meta, they don't have that regressing tag, so they're a bit they're controlled by the fact that they have the 2-turn timer, so you can't just grow them like the Hunters could in Frost, for example, 2 patches ago, where it was much more exponential in their growth. This is a bit more controlled, but if you don't control that growth with the ships, they can still gain a lot of value, the Greatswords, and be really good res targets in round 2 and 3, and like really good finishers for Skellige. So it's gonna be interesting to see how Nadrak tries to control the ships and the Greatsword in that combo.
Yes, we actually see the Royal Decree coming out from Sidokaz in this deck. We see it on the Eskel, which will destroy this Mangonel as it is not buffed. So that is a great target, I think, for the Eskel here, because it denies that value from the Mangonel from hitting Sidokaz's units. And also, the Royal Decree change now boosts the gold card that you choose by 2 as well. So that Eskel is now buffed to 9, so this is a combination of a 16 power play that will remove the potential power of this Mangonel.
Yeah, it's definitely, Royal Decree is an interesting card to see. It gives the deck more consistency, but I don't know if, it's not really a card that's played a lot in ladder, I think. I personally haven't seen it much, but it does give you the chance to get those round 1 gold if you need them, especially in this deck that I guess runs Wild Boar, so it's going to need, Royal Decree to just give the deck more consistency, be able to reliably draw the gold it needs in round 1 to be able to win round 1 and be able to dictate the length of round 2 and 3.
Yeah, so you say there the Royal Decree is mainly used for the consistency of the deck, and to this deck that uses Wild Boar of the Sea, which will strengthen the units that Sidokaz plays. Do you think that because he chose the Eskel, he may have the Wild Boar of the Sea in hand, so he wants to play that from hand rather than the Royal Decree? So it's definitely... I can imagine so, or maybe he was just, quite scared of the value that Mangonels could reach in a long round 1. With a reveal deck that still has, more rank, because he didn't draw Mangonels. Nadrak didn't draw Mangonels in round 1 last game, which is a bit unfortunate for him, but he does have it this game, and with more Renin and all the reveals that this deck has, it would be a lot of value. So maybe, even if he doesn't have Wildboar, it was maybe correct for him to just try and kill that Mangonel off and deny all that value. Oh yeah, definitely. The Mangonels can put out a lot of value in long rounds, which round 1 usually is in this meta, because we want to put a lot of emphasis on winning round 1, so you can dictate how round 2 is played, whether you want to dry pass to get the card advantage or whether you want to bleed them out in the round 2. So you definitely have a lot more control winning that round 1. So the mangonels are definitely a great factor in determining whether you win round 1 or not, because of the immense value they can bring out.
Yeah, and like I mean, discard last patch with the longships had the war longships had a lot of value from the war longship, but I think the mangonels have even more value. They can't get res, which is kind of the downside to it, but with Morvran revealing so many cards and a lot of reveals going on in this deck, and the golems coming out for tempo, it's kind of like, I mean, it's a big play to make here with having a mangonel or 2 mangonels out in round 1. Like it can really punish your opponent. So I think that was definitely the correct choice to just try and delete that off the board as soon as possible and deny all the value. Even if he does have Wild Boar in hand, we do see it now, so it's irrelevant really. But I think even if he didn't, he would have still chosen to try and kill that mangonel as soon as possible.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that was definitely a great play. So now we see the chain coming out from Sidokaz, which will get started from that Longship and the Greatsword combo, which will boost the Longship and the Greatsword simultaneously, as the Longship will gain 2 strength every time it hits that Greatsword, and then the Greatsword will reset itself and boost strengthen by 2 as well. So definitely a good play out here for Sidokaz, and because he won the coin flip, he's safe to do this, as he won't be susceptible to a pass from Nadrek here to make him go 2 cards down.
Yeah, I mean, the engine's starting. This is the Greatsword engine, and this is what you want to kind of interrupt. I know with their different decks have different tactics to do so. I know with like Mulligan, for example, you can use brigades to kind of throw them in different rows and kind of mess up the ordering of how that works. But because it is one of the few combos in this patch that still relies on positioning, similar to Rand Warriors, for example. So placing a spy here does the job of denying that positioning kind of and denying that combo that he had going with the ship and the Greatsword.
Yeah, so here we see the Wild Boar coming down. Yeah, actually, we're seeing now that the Wild Boar is actually being used for both sides. Before, we were just seeing it as it was a strength boost for Skellige's cards. But now we're actually seeing it with both sides being used, where one side will damage, the right-hand side will damage by 1, and the left-hand side will strengthen the unit on the left by 1. But with these great swords, they're great to have on the right-hand side of this boar, because they will reset and boost from the damage that the Wild Boar will deal. So that's
we do see Ox coming out though. Ox coming out with 2 locks. That's denying a lot of value over a long turn. For Sidokaz, it denies both the ships. The 2 ships both get locked up, so they're going back to the port, to the harbor, not in use any longer, and it's going to deny a lot of value over the long turn for Sidokaz for sure. And it's going to deny the Greatsword gaining value for a res later on as well. So I mean, it's definitely good luck. I think Ox was a good choice in this reveal deck, and especially against this Greatsword deck for sure.
Oh yeah, this Ox is a great card against this Skellige deck here, because you can lock 2 potential huge units. But unfortunately, we see the Donar and Hindar coming out from this crack, which will actually steal. Is that a Mangonel that you stole from the opponent's graveyard? Unfortunately, there are no ways of Nadrek getting that back, as we don't think we saw any Vikavara medics in his deck. No, we didn't see any, but also the Sidokaz can't really make use of that Mangonel from the Priestess either, so definitely coming out strong here from Sidokaz, definitely.
Yeah, Donar coming out, he got changed a bit from last patch. He's not, the RNG machine that we all know and love, or know and hate sometimes if you're not a Skellige player. He now steals from graveyards instead of from the deck, so that definitely changes up the way it works a bit, and obviously it's a bit less menacing, I think, for a lot of decks that rely on their bronze units to get their core synergy out. But we do see the Spy also revert the coin flip a bit for Nadrek, and so if Sidokaz does win this round, he's going to still be a card down. He can dry pass to get the card advantage back or play a Spy, but obviously still not the best situation you want to be in. You want to be in the chance, have a chance to win the round 1 on even cards. It's always the ideal to try and go into round 3 with the card advantage.
Yeah, definitely. So we actually see in Sidokaz's hand, do we actually have anything in his hand that can force this round any further? Like, we got the Herbalist, which will probably be an Adrenaline Rush, if I remember correctly from this deck. But then we only see a sort of a Jeng threat that can actually boost some power on the board. We actually see the restore coming out to just get that more power on the board, because obviously with his hand at the moment he doesn't actually have that much to stay in the round other than probably the Marigold's Hailstorm, and he may put the Hunter down next to that Greatsword next. What do you think that Nadrak can do here to avoid not getting overpowered by Sidokaz's board here?
I mean, considering he essentially flipped a coin flip, I think he knows that he can pass any time, and he's just trying to maybe bleed out. Maybe he doesn't care too much about winning this round. Because Marigold Hailstorm, for example, is a good card to obviously create a lot of tempo and a big swing. But against Greatswords in round 3, for example, it isn't that great, because you're reviving the big Greatswords and then you Hailstorm them, and once you get the timing perfect, they're just going to reset and get back to their strength again anyway. So it's a card that a lot of people think that Hailstorm counters his deck because you see such high strength values, but it really doesn't at all. Whereas it might definitely counter Nadrak's deck, considering we also see Marigolds in Sidokaz's hand, and we see how abundant this card is in pretty much every deck because of the power creep, because you see units getting so much points now. We do see the pass from Nadrak, as I stated before. I think he just wants to kind of stop the Greatsword train from going on, and he knows he has a card advantage, so he knows he's not super comfortable losing this round, but at least better than losing it, considering he lost the coin flip at the start.
Oh yeah, definitely. Losing the round 1 card up is definitely a lot better than having to be forced down 2 cards with that win. But yeah, I think we just see Sidokaz's pass here, or is he looks like he's choosing something. I guess he could Herbalist the A-Rush onto something to maybe keep that card into the next round. So yeah, we do see that coming out. And is this going to be an Adrenaline Rush? Yes, we do see an Adrenaline Rush coming out onto that Wild Boar of the Sea, which will then pass over to next... Oh, is it not there? I'll wait on that before... Okay, we see it on the Greatsword, and this means that we'll have this Greatsword into next round, and it'll be able to push this next round and boost that Greatsword even further for a greater round 3 play. Or we may see the dry pass coming out from Sidokaz. What do you think, Panda?
I mean, that's an interesting choice to play the AR Rush there. You're pretty much valuing a card at 11 points, and you're losing the fact that you can play more reactive, considering you still would have 1 more card. Having a card less means he values it at 11 points plus whatever you lose from not being able to be as reactive. So that's an interesting decision. I'm not sure if I agree with it 100%, but the fact this deck also requires a lot of setup. So the turns you waste playing, the Greatsword and the and the ship from hand is also something you have to value into that decision. It's kind of like Axeman as well. Playing the Axeman onto the board, for example, it's no tempo at all. You needed to do it, obviously, for the setup to get those big tempo swings, but the fact he already has a Greatsword on board is already a really good choice, and he knows he has another A-Rush, so he can, if he can get this train going and get a really big Greatsword, he can keep into the next round as well, even though he's falling very far behind in card advantage.
Yeah, I guess he's trading the fact that he doesn't have card advantage, but he will have these big units on board the whole time, and taking them into round 3 can mean a lot of points for Sidokaz going into that round 3. So the card advantage may not matter as much as it would in other matchups, I guess.
Yeah, we see the Hunter coming down, which is, reminds us of the old Skellige days, the old open beta patch where we had the combos of the Hunter and the Longship, although Greatsword definitely wasn't there at the time. And we see Cynthia as well. Cynthia, again, going to be a bit poor this time around, I think, considering most cards are revealed already. So again, Cynthia might not get as much value as we would have liked. We do see the Vautier coming down as well, which is a big tempo swing, and allows Nadrak to pass the score, still being 2 cards up. So even if that A-Rush does come out, I don't think Nadrak is super worried about it, considering he has so much card advantage.
Yeah, definitely. Unfortunately, this Cynthia hasn't been working out too great for Nadrak in this series here. We saw the quite weak Cynthia last round, and then we saw this one not being very useful as the opponent doesn't really have any units left in his hand. So we're probably going to see the Jenge Threat come out here to, here we go, to see the boost on power. I'm surprised he hit the Hunter there. Maybe, well, I don't really see any reason why not to hit the Longship there, because the Hunter's going to keep gaining value from that Longship hitting the Greatsword next to it anyway. And oh, we see the Fire Scorpion coming out from Nadrak here. That's definitely going to be a huge swing to Nadrak, as that Longship chain is definitely not going to continue anymore.
Yeah, it was definitely a valuable hit, not just the 10 points, but just denying, the different effects that Longship could have gotten over the next few turns of this round. So we do see the res coming out regardless, so it doesn't really matter too much. I guess the res would have happened regardless, and we have the A-Rush. Cynthia obviously is completely bricked. Nadrak, luckily, I think he knows the opponent might play another A-Rush, so he's not too worried about having to, play a lot of his cards to match the opponent's strength for this round anyway. So he knows that he can save Cynthia for round 3 or even mulligan it round 3 if he thinks it's not going to get value. So he's not too worried about that bricked card. I mean, he knows it's bricked probably. I mean, he doesn't see the A-Rush, so maybe he thinks he still has, I don't know, a Hjalmar in hand, but probably unlikely. We're going to see what cards he decides to choose here, because he wants to spend, obviously, the least amount of cards necessary to win the round, so he doesn't expend all his, high-value cards that he wants to save for round 3, but he also wants to do it in as few cards as possible. So it's a tough equation to solve, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know what we're going to see. Probably the Cynthia Nadrak seems to be hovering over here. Unfortunately, we know that this Cynthia isn't really going to get much value because it's going to reveal that A-Rush in his hand, in Sidokaz's hand. But we actually see the Marigold's Hailstorm here. It's a great time to use Marigold's Hailstorm, as this turn timer from the Greatsword isn't going to matter that as much, as it will tick now and then he'll be able to deal with the rest later.
But again, it's still gonna heal back up, so it's not as good as it looks. Like it looks like a big tempo swing, but it really isn't. Like the fact that once he sees the A-Rush in hand, he's gonna be a lot less worried, because right now he thinks maybe he's gonna get 2-0'd or something. Like he doesn't know what Sidokaz has right now in hand. But once he sees the A-Rush, he knows that he's not too scared about committing to this round. He knows he can do it, in 1 or 2 cards, because he's gonna be playing a 0 tempo card right now. So we're going to see what Nadrak decides to play after this and what he expects from Sidokaz to finish out this round.
So what do you think the optimal play here from Nadrak is? Because we see he has got quite a few cards in hand. He unfortunately doesn't have anything to reveal, so that spotter isn't going to get any more than 4 value. But obviously he's got the 10 points from Messiah, the 5 points from Cynthia, and the 10 points from Fire Scorpion. So what do you think the optimal play here would be to close out this round for Nadrak, because he sees the Marigolds in hand, so he knows what he has to play around?
Yeah, I mean the Marigold's Hailstorm is going to get decent amount. Well, not quite that much value really. He can just hit the play this Fire Scorpion, because Cynthia's not going to get any value. It's just a 5-point card. The Greatsword's going to grow back up to I think 19, I believe, this time around, or 17. So it's still going to be a huge swing.
Yeah, definitely. And unfortunately, Nadrak doesn't really have that big of a play in his hand to counteract this. I assume we see the Marigold's Hailstorm come out from Sidokaz just to push this round as much as he can, and that Marigold's Hailstorm isn't really going to get that much value out of a further round, as Marigold's Hailstorm gets the most value out of a longer round, obviously, because you're playing more cards to get more damage on that Marigold.
Yeah, he definitely wants to play it as soon as possible, and he also knows that the less cards there are in round 3, the more valuable that carryover A-Rush Greatsword is, and the fact that he's still gaining points over the next 2 turns with the Greatsword. Like, it's still gaining value over time, so he definitely wants to play that Hailstorm 100%, and he knows he has good top decks. If he can res, different units, Skellige has normally good top decks for round 3, so Nadrak is in a tough position here for sure. I mean, the Cynthia, again, not creating a lot of points, and I think it's just...
Is this a 2-0 situation?
Well. Yeah, it looks like it is.
We only have 9 points left from Nadrak here.
Definitely a 2-0. And we're still getting value not just from the Greatsword, but from the Hunter as well. So, I mean, it's just, he couldn't keep up with the engine, I guess. And he didn't even need the carryover. Like, that's how oppressive Sidokaz's play was this game, where even with a carryover 20 strength unit, he was still able to 2-0 the opponent, which says a lot about both decks. I mean, Nadrak had a lot of bricked cards. He had very dead cards in round 2, which didn't give him the chance to fight there. I think the only option for him was to, if the Marigold Hailstorm would have brought down the Greatsword to a strength level where the Fire Scorpion could have killed it, that would have been a huge swing, and it would have been crazy. I think it brought it down to 6 instead of 4, so it was almost there, but it just wasn't enough. I mean, Cynthia was bricked again. Last game not as badly as this game, but this game it was completely dead because of those spells. And maybe Cynthia needs a change. Maybe she has to get, the 5 points from spells like the officers do. Who knows? But it was definitely dead in that game and cost Nadrak, again, the loss with Reveal. And it's going to be interesting to see if they play that deck again, if they want to play Reveal again for this 3rd game, because it already has 2 losses. So
yeah, and they always have the option of, I guess, changing the deck. with Morvan, it's kind of they're set in stone with a certain archetype. They have to play around those Morvan reveals, but they can also just use that Morvan as a sort of information tool rather than actually working into the archetype. So they can use it just to reveal the cards of the opponent so they know what they can play around, but then play some sort of a different deck with sort of maybe Spies or such like that. It's probably not as optimal as a lot of people would think, but it's definitely a consideration, seeing as they have just got 2 losses with that deck and they may need to switch something up. But Sudoka's definitely playing that very well.
Yeah, we're gonna have to see if maybe we don't see players like Arid or Joe Snow playing at all in this match, because I mean it's 2 losses already. If they want to keep, I know a lot of teams. I know Club Penguin, for example, in week 1 they just kept on playing without Henselt and it just kept on going. They kept on losing. So at the end, only Meisling played that round. So maybe we see that again, where teams just tunnel vision on one deck and having to get the win with that deck before switching, and then they just completely get blown out in 3 games and they get a quick 3-0. We'll see if that ends up happening here. We'll see what decks are brought out, and if we get to see maybe something different, not just more run reveal.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see if we do see that reveal again. It'll be we'll definitely know the deck list by then.
Yeah, we're going to go into this game 3. So let's see if we do see some different decks, some different players. We know we have only one player left on Ask Gwent Alba, which is Sipiwi, coming in with Dagon. Or we see Joe Snow coming in with Dagon and Sipiwi coming in with Emir. So Emir, it's a very interesting deck choice. What do you think about Emir? I think it's the point we have to make here.
I have to say, I played Emir for the first time today, and I am actually enjoying it so much. The mill variant of this Emir deck is definitely super fun, with the addition of these Magne divisions, which give you such a huge card advantage in round 3, as you can draw your cards, but the opponent won't. But yeah, it's definitely in this meta where a lot of people are playing normal decks, not like 30, 40 card decks, where they're teched against mill. But yeah, mill's definitely great in this meta, I believe.
Yeah, mill's a very interesting deck choice. It completely changes the game of Gwent. I think it does things and has synergies and sequence and ways of playing the deck that just it completely differs from any other deck that's played. The way it's played out, and especially with the addition of these new Alba Spearmen and Magne division that synergized with mill. Before, it didn't really have any bronze units to synergize with it as well. It just had the silvers and of course the golds like Avalak, but now it has the bronze support as well, and it's definitely, I think, for decks that thin a lot, like Mulligan Scoia'tael, for example, it's definitely something you don't want to see in ladder or in tournaments. And we'll see if Joe Snow's deck does thin a lot. We see Crohn's here, so that's already some thinning going on, but we'll see if he can go play around getting milled. And in general, the one thing mill can't do is provide a lot of value with its cards. It relies on having just a lot more card advantage to be able to get value. So if Joe Snow can play around getting milled, then maybe he is fine, and he can maybe win this game.
Yeah, as I was saying before, you don't see many of these unnormal decks. But then I look down, and Joe Snow is actually playing a 30-card monster deck here. I assume that's what the addition of these Ancient Foglets are in his hand, which a lot of people would say aren't usable, but I definitely think they can get a lot of value in, because obviously he's playing against mill, so they're going to have a lot of long rounds ahead of them. So these Ancient Foglets can build up very high strength numbers, and maybe that'll give Joe Snow the edge in these long rounds.
Yeah, it's also a kind of a nerf to mill in this current TGI tournament format where the deck lists aren't fixed. I know a lot of tournaments don't have the fixed deck list right now. They're kind of open deck lists. If you see a mirror in the opponent's lineup, he's playing mill, so to just, I'm just going to put in a casual 10 extra cards in my deck just to make sure I don't get milled. And they're cards that maybe you wouldn't put in your deck otherwise because it won't be as consistent, but against mill, you don't really need that consistency. You just need more cards to draw. So Joe Snow, as you said, he puts in quite a few more cards in his deck, and hoping that this way he evades getting milled and he can still keep his Crones and his big tempo swings in his deck.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's definitely going to help him to not get milled as quickly as most decks usually do. But I think with his thinning potential, as he's got the Wild Hunt Hounds, I think I see 2 Wild Hunt Hounds in this deck. So we're definitely going to see those thinning potential coming out from Joe Snow here. But yeah, definitely going to be an interesting match, I think, coming out here. Mill is definitely a fun and exciting experience to watch, I think.
Yeah, definitely, except it lasts, approximately 17 hours to finish a game because you do go through the whole deck,
Yeah.
so you're going to see every single card played one by one. It might be quite a long adventure here, but we're ready for it. I think we're prepared to see the showdown, and Joe Snow's definitely ready for it because it is, do or die right now. He has to win this match, and he has to rely on his team winning quite a few more matches to be able to take this and turn around in the reverse sweep, so we'll see if he can do it. He is prepared, does have, a lot of cards, he's ready to go, and an interesting strategy you have to watch out for here is if Avalac is played, we are going to see maybe even a pass from Joe Snow because he knows that he can get an extra card advantage from Sipiwi, even if he's ahead, because he's going to want to obviously shackle the Avalac and bring it back to hand. So it's also a strategy that a lot of decks tend to do if they don't have a very rampy situation with their deck builds and they can play kind of linear. But monsters do have weather, so maybe he just decides to stay in this round.
Yeah, Joe Snow being quite famous for his monsters, and he'll definitely know the matchup quite well, I feel. This is a strange thing that I've seen. He has actually running more than one Foglet, which a lot of people have frowned upon, as there's no reason to, as only one comes out from the Fog played. But I guess because he's running all these extra Fogs in his deck, the extra Foglets definitely provide the extra initial value from those vanilla Fogs coming out from Joe Snow here.
Yeah, he doesn't have to wait for one of the Foglets to die to get value from the rest of the Foglets. So I think it's still worth it for him. I guess he's kind of milling himself, but I think he prepared for that accordingly, putting in more cards into his deck, so he knows he's going to be milling those Foglets out, which is fine for him. And he still gets the extra tempo on every Fog, which is obviously good. Also, you have to take into account, I don't know if I agree with the fact that Asquan Alba decided to play Mill as a last deck. Because if they do win with their two other decks and they have to play Mill last, you have to take into account that Team Shoop can now just, put a ton of cards into their decks, and they know that Emir, for the most part, they have to play Emir, so they have to play Mill. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see if maybe they can get the reverse sweep off just because of that fact, that they can just put more cards in their deck and play around getting milled.
Yeah, definitely. That's a very good point to bring up. The fact that this tournament where you can tech in choices after the games are finished, so you can see what the opponent's running and you can decide what you want to do to play against that. And because they've only got one deck left to play in this Conquest format, it's going to be Mill. So Mill is quite simple to, I guess not simple, but it's quite a knowledgeable way of teching against Mill would be just to put extra cards in your deck, so they can't get you down to those 0 cards, to make use of the new cards like Magnum Division, which sort of rely on the opponent not having any extra cards. So we see these Spearmen coming down. They're going to generate a lot of value with this Avalac and coming down, and let's see how Joe Snow can deal with that.
I mean, Joe Snow is locked into this long round. He has two ancient Foglets, not just Foglets, but ancient Foglets. These are like the Grandmaster Foglets out on the board. He has the Fog ticking as well, the weather going, so he's getting a lot of value every single turn. And maybe just Sipiwi can't keep up with this. Even if he does get his mill engine going off, he gets the buffs on the Spearman. Maybe it's not enough. Because, I mean, that's a lot of tempo for Avalac, sure, but you have all this stuff ticking every single turn. Maybe you just can't keep up over a long round.
Yeah, for sure. So we've got... Well, let's work it out here. So we've got the 4 ticking from the Fog and then the 2 ticking from the Ancient Foglet. There's definitely going to be a lot of point potential here from Joe Snow in this long round. And taking Mill is definitely a favoured matchup if you take Mill into a long round 1 and then try and win that round 1. So then you can dictate when you want to pass round 2 to deny... Because obviously Avalac has the clash mechanic, so he can't draw the cards if the opponent has passed. And we see here Joe Snow is actually hovering over that pass button. What do you think about this pass here?
I mean, he knows he's still ticking for points. He knows, like I said earlier, shackles. He has to shackle the Avalac still, so he has to, get the shackles out with a mirror, draw back the Avalac, and he still has points ticking with the Fogs and the Ancient Foglets. So he's losing control of the game by doing this, but he's also guaranteeing card advantage by doing this. And I think he's not too worried about getting milled in round 2 because he does still have 13 cards in his deck. And he knows, I mean, in general, Weather has a pretty linear playstyle. It doesn't ramp too much as long as you still have more Weathers in hand, which he does have. So I think he's not super worried about it. And he knows that he has to shackle the Avalac now to get it back to be able to...
Yeah, definitely. So what do we think we see here from Sipiwi? We're going to see probably the Emir here back from decoying the Avalak back to his hand with the shackles, and then, but he's taking a lot of damage from this fog. He's going to be taking at least 4, depending on how many cards he chooses to use here. But he's probably going to bring out that Nozga Standard Bearer.
And that is a -2 play, so you're taking the damage from the, and it's the -2 play from getting back the Avalak, so that's what I meant. Josno, I think, definitely got the correct pass there. He has a value over time ticking, and he has, those plays that make them essentially -2 plays with a mirror coming out, drawing back the Avalak, etc. It's still not ideal, and with the changes to mirror, it makes it a bit more fluid, where you can shackle and get it back in like 1 turn, which it wasn't the way, I would think wasn't that way in the last patch, if I'm not mistaken.
No, you had last patch. You
have to do it the other way around.
Back. Yeah, you brought the card back and then played the card. Yes.
So it was a more complex kind of sequencing, but he's still quite far behind. He still has to start using Marigold's Hailstorm. He's still getting value from the Fog and the Ancient Foglets. And he's already 2 cards down. Like,
yeah, so even
not looking good.
Even the Standard Bearer here doesn't do it. It ties it here, right? The Standard Bearer here.
Yeah, and he can't play cards that keep on milling because Josno passed. So Avalak, for example, just isn't going to work. He can't keep on milling and getting points on the Alba Spearman as well. So
yeah,
this is the counter to mill. The pass with the Avalak, if you're already ahead and have points sticking on the board, is hard to come back with because they just don't have the quick tempo plays that other decks have.
Yeah, Superi definitely in a rough corner here. It's going to be interesting to see what he actually turns out to play here. Probably, yeah, I think he has to play that Nozga Standard Bearer now just to stop that attrition coming down. But he's still going to get that tie. Maybe he probably plays the Alchemist just for the point values. Or he plays the Magnum Division, because that has a clash mechanic, so he won't draw the opponent a card after Josno's passed, obviously.
Maybe he should have just played the Weather Clear much earlier, because it was still getting value over time, so he had to calculate that he had to go down 2 cards anyway. So why get the Emir Avalak play as a round 1 instead of denying that Fog value over the next 2 turns? I think that was the main misplay here, but obviously it's not a mill. I think is if the opponent doesn't play into your hands of getting milled and giving you control of round 2, etc., it's a hard deck to play because you don't have that tempo to catch back if they do get a really good pass on you. And Josno got a really good pass onto Peewee, I think.
Yeah, definitely a very good pass there from Josno. We'll probably see the dry pass coming out here from Peewee just to get that 1 extra card. But we also do know the power of the mill mechanic in this game, where you can go 3 cards down round 1 and end up in round 3 5 cards up, so we may see that coming out from Sipiwi if he plays this super well, but I definitely think Josno is favourable at this position.
But even if he does go for the card advantage, if he goes into a long round against Weather and he doesn't have the tools to clear it, it's like this deck suffers from those damage over time effects like Weather or like different snowbally cards, because it lacks in value and it has to catch up with just card advantage by using its mill mechanics to have more cards than its opponent. But in general, just the cards aren't as valuable as other decks.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm actually seeing this Cyclops in Josno's deck. I wonder what he's chosen that for. But this is a great tactic for destroying the Avalak. If you have an 8 strength unit on the board, you can turn that 8 strength on your board into removing that Avalak on the opponent's side's board, which for mill, Avalak is his main card to generate its power, and destroying it is definitely a great play there.
Yeah, it's not just 8 points of value. Like, you have to calculate much more than that. It's not an easy calculation to make, but the fact that you're denying 2 more cards getting milled, especially if you're about to get totally milled, or you think you're going to get totally milled, it's obviously worth much more than that if you can kill it. And we see the Alba Spearman here, which looks like it's going to be the sacrificial lamb, going to get sacrificed to the gods to be able to kill that Avalak and get rid of it for the rest of this round. But we do see the decoy coming out and increasing its strength to a total of 11, so making that mission quite a bit harder. But we do see the Alba Spearman getting buffed as well, so it doesn't matter in the end. You can still use the Cyclops here, although with decoy already out and Emir already played, is there any reason to kill the Avalak?
I think there's every reason to kill the Avalak here. I think
he has to get here as well, yeah. You can still get here, that's true. But now he can sire. He can sire as well, then you just draw it later. So it's a tough call to make.
Yeah, he can sire it, but then what does he have to draw it? He has to pass, doesn't he? He plays a sire and then probably. Oh, so Josno's actually running 2 of those Cyclopses. So he probably sires the Avalak in now, and then he'll Stefan the Avalak, so he definitely draws the Avalak next.
Yeah, that's why it's a tough call to make. You don't know what your opponent has in his hand. Obviously, you're not playing reveal any longer, so it's a tough call to make. If you kill it, Asira's going to come in. And if you don't kill it, then he can still cohere it. So yeah, it's a tough call to make. Luckily, Swears didn't get too much value. At least it only got 1 card and not 2, and they weren't even cards that I think this deck doesn't really rely on them too much on the Cyclops. So I think Joe Snow isn't too worried, and he is still casual 4 cards up. So I think he's still fine with this.
Yeah, he's definitely feeling happy with himself here. I think 4 cards up, points ahead. The Sipiwi can't pass yet. As if he passes now, he's already played 4. He's got 4 goals that we've seen, so he doesn't have a renew or anything, and the Avalak is silver anyway. So yeah, Sipiwi is definitely in a rough corner. We'll probably see the Asai here just to get that Avalak back in, and maybe Sipiwi has a good chance of drawing that if he doesn't choose to go for the Stefan.
And the more Joe Snow plays in, or the most Sipiwi.
A strong mechanic in this game. Definitely gonna help Joe Snow win this one out. Maybe Sipiwi can deny that somehow. I don't think there's any way he can deny that. But also Joe Snow has that Dorogeri in his deck as well, so he got even more carryover if he chooses to go for that Ekimara.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough decision. I mean, just if you have to decide if you want to go for carryover, if you need the tempo in this round, if you think you're going to get out-tempoed in some way, or, if Sipiwi can get back hard advantage by creating a lot of tempo. But like I said before, Mill just doesn't have the chances that other decks have, so.
Oh yeah, definitely. And we probably see Sipiwi probably coming out with the Stefan here to get that Avalak on the top of his deck, so he knows he definitely draws it in this next round. But also, Joe Snow is going to have to get out this carryover as quickly as possible before Sipiwi passes, or he does lessen the value of his carryover potential, as in round 3 he won't have that carryover option.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said before, I mean, if Sipiwi is not going to have really a way to claw back with a tempo in this round, so how is he going to be able to get the card advantage back? He's not going to be able to, I think, in this game, or in this round anyway. We do seem to have some technical issues on the stream, apparently. Hoping that gets fixed soon, but other than that, we can analyze kind of the matchup and how it's going until now, I think.
Yeah, so at the moment, Joe Snow is looking in a very favourable corner here, because he's got the 4-card advantage, and going into round 3 with a 4-card advantage is definitely a very good position to be in. Although Sipiwi can have the potential of gaining his card advantage back with his Mill variant, he still has to get the rest of Joe Snow's cards out of his deck, draw those Magna divisions, and then cycle through as best as he can.
But even getting the tempo from the Magna division, the new bronze units to support this deck, I mean, he's still, he's 4 cards behind, still hasn't reached, he's still 4 points behind as well in terms of cards. He has Avalak, but Joe Snow still has 6 cards left in his deck. He's nowhere close to being milled, and we see most of the mill tactics are already out. So I think Sipiwi really just dug his own grave here in round 1. A bit of a misplay, I think, going so many cards down, and I don't know. I think he just has a very low chance of winning this one, even if Joe Snow might have a few dead cards with the Frost Hounds and the like. But it looks pretty tough for him, I think. He's now
for sure
5 cards down.
Yeah, it's definitely looking rough. Maybe what could Sipiwi have done differently there in that round 1? Maybe passed earlier, do you think? Just because he did go down those with the 4 cards, he could have maybe, as you said, he would have been in a better position if he had played that Standard Bearer first, just to deny that attrition value from the fog that was ticking, and he maybe could have gained 1 card back in that situation. But it was definitely a great play from Joe Snow there to pass. Definitely very well played from him.
That would have saved him at least one card, yeah, for sure. I think playing the standard bear first, and just the fact mill in these open deck list formats is, I don't know. I personally haven't played it in my TGI matches, although I think it's a very strong ladder deck because of this reason, because you can tech for it. And although I said earlier that maybe playing it last was a wrong choice by Asquin Alba's side, but also playing it last makes it so that your opponent has to play inconsistent decks the first 2 games. Because if they think mill's coming, they have to put more cards in their deck to counter it, and then they're playing worse decks against the rest of their opponents. So, I don't know, maybe it was correct to play it last, but now it makes it so they have to win one of these 3 games, and their opponent knows they're playing mill, so...
Yeah, there is that idea of them knowing that the mill has gone last, so they know that it's going to be mill constantly in these next games if we have more games. But yeah, it's definitely, I think, I would say a small mistake. It's definitely something that's in the format's strategy area. So you play the system rather than play the game, where you want to know which decks to bring at a certain point. And I think Alba could have maybe brought this as a first choice, so then the opponents weren't ready for it. And definitely when we saw that, it was the Northern Realms, if I remember correctly, first from...
Yeah.
Oh no, it was the reveal, sorry.
We do see Joe Snow winning the round 4 cards up and with carryover still, so he has not only the 4 card advantage but also the 8-point carryover from the Earth Elementals. So I think he's definitely happy with how his game's turning out, and I think he's comfortable that he's going to win this game. Sipiwi might even mill himself before he mills Joe Snow, because they both do have 3 cards. So I think it's definitely looking good for Joe Snow, and maybe they're not too worried. Maybe they think they can do the reverse sweep. They can play around this mill mechanic and just bring bigger decks, you know. Maybe that's the chance they have to win it.
Yeah, I don't know. Superior, what does he have here? He has the Avalak to draw 2 more cards. He's played a Shire. What does he have left in his deck? He'll have Decoy, so he can... Yeah, there's not really much left for Superior here in this. I think the best choice for, Asquin Alba here is just to sort of get to grips with what they're going to do for the next few matches, and then sort it out from there.
Yeah, definitely. We just see the Dorage played for just points with the Savage Bear. He knows there's still 5 cards left to be played, or 6 cards left to be played in this round, so he knows he's going to get some value out of that Savage Bear, and I think more value than Drowner or Ekimaru would have given him, so he definitely goes for that. But even then, I mean, even if he does get the decoy for the Avalak, which he has 1 card left, and I mean, they both have 1 card left, so it's not really an advantage for Sipiwi either, although he does get the buff on the Alba Spearman, I guess. But
yeah, so we see the Dagon finally come out from Joe Snow here to get that fog out and get that attrition damage going. It's going to be a very bad situation here for Sipiwi, as he has no other way of denying that fog value, as I guess he could decoy out the Avalak from his side of the fog, but he still has to play into that attrition value if he doesn't choose to decoy it out. And we see, you go.
The Foglet wasn't from his deck, it was from the graveyard, so he thinned all his Foglets already. He did not thin himself there again, so he's not going to lose out on that extra card if Sipiwi does decoy the Avalak. So he's fine with that as well. He gets to just get all this weather going now. He has, a lot of damage ticking over time. He's going to have the Ancient Foglet as well. I think it's not, you don't even have to consider the fact that Sipiwi might win this. I think it's obviously quite impossible.
Yeah, it would definitely be quite the feat for Superior to bring this back here.
I mean, even on even cards, I think Joe Snow would still win it. So I think there's really no chance. I mean, the Frost Hounds are dead, right? They're not bringing out any Frost. Yeah. That's something.
Oh,
he has a Frightener as well.
There is 1 Frost in the deck.
There's 1 Frost left.
I see there's one Frost left in the
so
deck.
One of them isn't dead at least, but we still have one dead Frost Hound and 1 dead Frightener. So essentially, he's only 2 cards up essentially, but he's still, there's still a 16-point gap plus the weather ticking every turn, and
now plus the Ancient Foglet, which is going to hurt Superior's chances even further.
And Vilgefortz can kill one of Joe Snow's biggest units if he wants, but right now there really isn't anything too juicy to try and slay off the board, so that's not really an answer to his problems either. So normally, like, even if you're a lot of cards up against Mill, sometimes you have very dead cards like Reinforcement in Northern Realms or Dijkstra or Spies, etc. But in this case, it might look like it's, you know, a huge gap, and it is, but it's not as big, but it's still not enough for Sipiwi. I think he still knows that he has his lost, I think. Yeah, I think
they're just trying to stall, maybe think out a strategy for what they're going to do next game. So we see the Avalak drawing. Doesn't that actually give a card disadvantage for Sipiwi here, as he brings out the Frost from Joe Snow here instead of, and then he didn't draw any cards himself. So it's definitely going to be. And
it also gives Vilgefortz the chance to kill one of the enemy units without drawing a card as well. So those are two reasons why he would decoy Avalak there. But yeah, he denies essentially 2-card advantage because Vilgefortz and the Dead Frosthound are both, you know, in trouble because of that Avalak play. But still, I mean, it's just, we see here a huge point gap, and I think even, you know, there's just no chance here. We still have Woodland Spirit, we still have, you know, a lot of decent cards in Joe Snow's hand and not so decent in Sipiwi's hand. So it's looking tough for sure.
Yeah, and we have we got the Marigold's Hailstorm in Joe Snow's deck that we were talking about earlier, that is definitely used in a lot of the decks at the moment for that huge, as you say, in the power creep from the bronzes that we've seen. It's definitely a great mechanic to have in your deck.
I think most players would forfeit here, but I think Sipiwi does want to see all the cards in Joe Snow's deck and make sure he knows, you know, what Joe Snow's playing with, what golds he's playing, what silvers he's playing. He wants to get all the information possible for the next few matchups. Although, of course, if Joe Snow wins, it doesn't matter regardless. So never mind. That point is non-existent. Maybe he's just interested. He wants to play monsters himself, so he just needs this information for ladder, I guess.
Yeah, he's against He's against the famous Joe Snow, who's like a great monster player himself. So he wants to get all those secret tactics down for his ladder play.
Unless I think he could have passed a while ago. I think his game is pretty lost, but maybe he's just not, you know, a person that gives up, and maybe he still has hopes, and, you know, that's a very noble way to look at things. So we'll just have to wait it out. But I think this game, looking at both hands, of course, as a caster, it's much easier to see that a game is pretty much over. But we're gonna have to see it played out. We still see Joe Snow with quite a bit of card advantage. Props to Sipiwi for milling a 30-card deck. I mean, it's not really that easy. He did go a few cards down to do it, but in the end, it wasn't enough. Joe Snow is probably gonna come out ahead with
just a few cards.
Monster deck.
Yeah, I think we see that Joe Snow is gonna close this one out pretty soonish. Sipiwi just stalling. I guess what is the strategy here from Sipiwi? Why do you think he hasn't passed, other than the nobility that we've talked about? I can't see a reason.
Maybe he's just stalling for time to talk with his teammates about their next few games. He's just getting as much time as possible to just get the good, you know, strategies going for the next few games, because he knows this is a game where he has to win this. He has to secure this playoff spot for his team, and you know, they're obviously taking this very seriously. It's not, maybe we're laughing about it, but he's obviously spending every single second of this match and just these next few minutes to prepare for the next games, and mentally, and not just, you know, information-wise, getting information from the opponent's deck or maybe how they play, you know, these rounds against Mill, but also just mentally getting prepared, because knowing you have to play Mill, you have to play this deck, and it has to be Sipiwi playing it. He can't, you know, throw Sidikaz back in to play a game or Sinan, so he knows he has to play it, and mentally it's a tough feat to know that your team relies on you to win the games and relies on you to play a deck that's in some ways easily countered in this format, so it must be tough for him mentally as well. But yeah, this game looks pretty over. Maybe if Joe Snow gave him a few cards, gave him, you know, share some of his cards with Sipiwi, it might be a bit closer, but it's not looking really good.
We did see the hover. Maybe Joe Snow was going to Marigold's Hailstorm his own row there, but I think that would have been a bit too much BM there. But yeah, I definitely agree with your idea of them mentally preparing for the next games. It's definitely a huge task to perform these games. Best of 5 is definitely mentally exhausting, as much as you wouldn't expect it to, as you're just playing a card game and you're not really physically moving that much, but the mental strain you have and the pressure and stuff, especially being on the team, definitely is something you need to work on. And
so just not coming in with the BM Frightener, but that really wasn't a BM Frightener. It was really just a Frightener to, you know, morally destroy his opponent, and that way give him less time to prepare for the next match. So I think Joe Snow knew, you know, the mental tactics going on there, and he knew he had to play that Frightener to just crush his opponent and force out that forfeit early, and it did happen. So he could have just passed, of course, as well. So, but 2 games left. Sepiwi has to try and win against decks that know he's playing mill, which is not an easy thing to do. So it's gonna be really interesting to see how if he changes his deck at all. Maybe he's only locked to the leader, only locked to Amir, and obviously the player as well. So it's gonna be interesting to see like how he changes his deck around. Do you think he's gonna change it at all or not? A-?
I believe he could. The problem with Amir at the moment is, as you said, all the way back to the start of this match here. Amir is kind of stuck to a mill variant at the moment. You can play Amir Control. It is not a bad deck, but it's definitely a deck that we haven't seen, and it'd definitely be very interesting to see if that comes out here. If he were to bring it, I think it would be sort of favoured because, as you said, the last deck would be mill, and so Impetuous. I was going to say your name then. Team Shoop here will be prepared for that mill, so they will be bringing extra cards. So maybe they want to bluff and play the Amir Control variant, knowing that Team Shoop will prepare for that mill with the inconsistency of a 25 plus card deck.
Yeah, definitely. I think I mean, it's a lot of mental games here because the deck list format makes it so obviously Joe Snow's out of here, so he knows he did his stuff, he did his job, he won one of the games that his team needs to win, and he knows now it relies on Nadrak and Aretuza. Nadrak possibly coming. No, it's Aretuza coming in with the Radovid. That's going to be interesting to see if Radovid can lock obviously some units, but I guess Alba Spearman, for example, but really not. I mean, we'll see if he also brought more cards to counter mill, because I guess he probably did. It would make sense if he did. We see a lot of cards that thin, though. We see Witch Hunters that thin a lot. So we'll see what and also Stennis, for example. So we'll see what the game plan is here for both players. Just seeing the deck card, the amount of cards in each deck already gives us a lot of information on what they're bringing.
Oh yeah, for sure. So we see the what is that, a 34 card deck here from Aretuza?
Yeah, we see a solid thick deck coming from Aretuza. He knows what he's playing against. He knows he has to bring, you know, a little bit of everything. Get a little bit of drummers, a little bit of, you know, pretty much every single archetype that Northern Realms is playing right now in ladder. He's just bringing all of it, a nice mix.
Yeah, and you also want to bring those cards that are also good on their own rather than in a synergistic way. So you've got stuff like Drummer, which it'll gradually bring points over time on its own. It's a great card. But then you've also got the Witch Hunters, which thin by, if you're running the Blue Stripes Commandos, which I think we did see originally in Aretuza's hand, you're going to thin for 5 there, and it's definitely going to be a test for Sepiwi if he's still bringing this mill variant.
I think Giovas had a different name. He's known as Aretuza and Giovas, but we'll go with Giovas because that is what is being shown on the screen here, so to not confuse our viewers. But so we'll go with Giovas. I guess Aretuza has been benched, and Giovas is coming in to win the game with Radovid.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
So we're going with Giovas, just not to confuse our viewers. We do see Giovas on screen, so we're going to go with Giovas just to make it a bit more consistent. But it's going to not be as consistent as his Radovid deck because it does have a lot of cards. So hopefully you can see if he can evade getting milled and how he plays around the Avalak being played again. Maybe he goes for another pass and forcing Sepiwi to go for the Shackle play with Avalak and going a lot of cards down again. He doesn't have the value over time plays that Weather has, I think. It's going to be a lot harder with just Drummers and maybe Trebuchets as well. But we'll see what he can bring up to try and get as much value as possible over long rounds against Mill.
Here's a question. Did we see the Roach last time? Was Sepiwi running Roach last time? Because that could be a giveaway that he has maybe changed his deck slightly from the Mill variant, rather than running that Mill variant that he was running last game. Just because of obviously he's got to play this again, and if he loses, he has to play it again. So he might not want to give away his strategy so far. And we see the Cantarella coming out here. What do you think about that as well?
Yeah, we see also like Sepiwi can not only like maybe he keeps on playing Mill and he's still playing Mill, but he can also change his deck where if he knows Monsters isn't in running anymore. He can take out weather clears, for example. I mean, there's different approaches, not just to changing the deck altogether and not playing mill, but changing it for the matchups you have. So if he knows he has to play against Northern Realms, Radovid, the leaders are public when you go into the ban phase for the matchup. So you know you're playing against Radovid and Morvrand. So he kind of techs for those two matchups and now doesn't have to tech against monsters. So that might change his deck as well. We do see Trololo coming out pretty early.
Now I'm excited. We have a new card here coming in, the Alba Armored Cavalry, which is that 3 strength bronze there in Jovis's hand, which is almost like a bronze version of Regis Higher Vampire, where it'll show you 3 bronze cards in Sapiri's deck. No, it'll be in Jovis's deck, and then it'll boost by the base power of that unit.
And we do see that Jovis went with the complete mind game swap, and he changed to a completely different deck. Obviously, the only thing bound when you go into a matchup is the player. So obviously, Sapiwi coming in with a mirror, but he's not bound to any kind of deck list. He can change, as long as he doesn't change the leader, he can change anything he wants. So he's going to be playing, obviously, Sapiwi is still playing Nilfgaard. And the names are just swapped on the stream, guys. It's chill out. It's just, you have to just swap the blue and the red and you're good to go. And he's playing a completely different deck. It's not mill any longer. And we'll see if that catches Jovis by surprise.
Yeah, we'll definitely see. This is definitely a first for my eyes. I haven't seen this deck. It definitely looks more like a Spies variant that we've seen quite recently, that I know Petrified been playing a lot. But also here, he's actually fished for that Eskel on that Trollolo, which will deny a lot of value from the Dunbanner heavy cavalries that Jovis will be running. What do you think about these this new deck then that Sapiri's bringing?
It looks like Nilfgaard Spies, pretty much, essentially, and with the infiltrators and cards like Rainfarn, etc., and the in general, all the cards look, and the Brigade, obviously. It looks like a Spy deck, which I think is very strong. I think right now it's the strongest Nilfgaard deck in ladder and maybe tournament format as well. Although Mill is obviously strong against the decks it counters like Mulligan, but in general I think Spy is a very strong deck, and it has Hello? It looks like we're back, maybe? So we are back to the call, I think, A-. I believe we had some technical issues on the Skype call. Gladly. It looks like we're back, although the screen share is still in process, but you can take it away, I guess, and just let me know how the game is going, what changed.
Oh, okay. I haven't actually seen any changes. My game's been frozen this whole time.
You're in my spot as well. All right, so just a few technical issues, guys. People in chat. A little bit of patience, obviously. This is not something that you would expect, but we're back. We're ready to cast this game. And we're seeing that they aren't even cards right now, and we do still see Nilfgaard ahead by 3 points, and there's quite a few spies on the board, so it's going to give a lot of value for the brigades. Obviously, it's at 14 already, which is a lot of value, A-. What do you think on this current board condition right now?
All right, so we actually have the Knight Elect coming up on Superior's side, so he's going to have a lot of points per turn coming out from that, but also Superior, it was on Jovis's side there, but Superior has also opted to infiltrate this Knight Elect, which can be used in conjunction with Menno Cohorn, but unfortunately he doesn't have that in hand currently. What do you think about the new Menno, particularly?
I think Infiltrator in general is just a really strong card. In conjunction with Menno, it's obviously much more than strong. It can really decide a round one. It kind of reminds me of the old round one Nilfgaard decks in open beta, where it was just super impressive round one. You had a really hard time winning against it because it had so many ways to gain value with the brigades and Van Hemar, for example, with the old Stamfords, and cards like just Rain Farm, for example, bringing out Canderella for minimal amount of points. I mean, it reminds me of this deck. This spy deck reminds me of that again, where it's just a really impressive round one and then has really good tools round 3 as well to finish.
Yeah, what do you think about I guess the change of this spy deck would be that he's running these Alba Armor Cavalry instead of the Imperial Forces, which a lot of people choose to take instead, that provide a lot of damage and removal points for the Nilfgaard player. What do you think about this swap?
Yeah, I think Enforcers are great. I really think Enforcers are a really good card, so I'm kind of skeptical about them not being in Sepui's deck. Although I guess he decided that he would get. I mean, they require a lot more setup. That's also true, and they're very slow. And maybe he decided to tech in different cards for the matchups he had left because he knew he couldn't have such a setup round one where you had to play 6 strength Enforcers into I think maybe it was too slow for him. He wanted to have just higher tempo cards in general, be able to match Radovid's power with the Knight Elects, etc. Yeah,
maybe he was looking for that reveal matchup that we had straight off that Nadrat was running, because you obviously have the big base strength units with those Nilfgaard Knights in the deck that could be potentially great power for your Alba Armored Cavalry.
It's also very true in the fact that maybe the Enforcers could get taken down, considering they're only 6 strength. Maybe they could get pinged off by Leo Bonhart, or maybe even the Fire Scorpions, for example. So I guess it was just he kind of hoped for the reveal matchup more than this one, maybe with his deck choices. But also the fact that Emir, like we saw there, it wasn't as effective maybe as Kalbeat would have been. What do you think? Like the leader choice, obviously he's trapped into that leader kind of. He has to play Emir, so he's doing with his resources the best he can with that leader. But do you think it was a lot worse than maybe another Nilfgaard leader?
Yeah, I definitely feel like Kalbeat would favor this deck more than the Emir does, because you don't really have a lot of synergies with the Emir, as you only really have what do we have, the Peter, and that's really it that you want to bring back. You can obviously bring back the Infiltrator if they manage to, because if you even lock a spy unit, an infiltrated spy unit, then it will remove that spy tag. So maybe you could use it for that, but it doesn't really have a lot of synergies within this sort of control-ish variant, or spies variant, if you want to say.
We do see that Pee-wee still has a chance to pass a card up, which is obviously not the worst of situations if he does want to pass here. He risks it playing the Armored Cavalry, I guess, because he doesn't know what he's going to get 100%. He doesn't know if he's going to go ahead and tempo 100%, and maybe he doesn't want to win this round a card down. Maybe he just wants to win it on even if he can, or pass otherwise, but we'll see what he goes for. He does get the Banard Tutor, which is not enough by a single point, especially with the Knight Elect ticking for 2 more points as well, so it's 3 points total. And, I mean, he can still play another card and win and then just drive past round 2, right? So he's maybe still not too worried. What do you think?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think he'll be not that worried at all. He's definitely. I think Team Shoop here are definitely in a great position, because they can obviously win the first round, which then gives them the control of this second round. Oh yeah, okay. We've got the names fixed now, guys, for you, so you're not trolling about that one. But we got the great power from the round 1 that Radovid brings out, and that armor is going to be huge for Team Shoop here. But unfortunately, he will be going 1 card down. Which, do you think that will affect the game at all?
You can just dry pass because Joe is, he's not playing carryover at all, Radovid, so he's not too worried about that. And he does still have the Peter to get a lot of value out of this turn. If he wants to, guarantee he gets Peter value, he can just play it this turn to make sure he gets a lot of power. But we do see the single Witch Hunter resetting the Armored Cavalry, which is still a fairly big play. I mean, there's quite a big of a gap here. There's 18 points of a difference right now between both players. So CPU has to play 19 to win it in 1, or you can just play 2 cards, of course, and then dry pass round 2, or play a Spy if he has one. But he already played Canterella, so he can't do that.
I definitely feel CPU could play out this round and go 1 card down, as denying that Stennis, if he Peters to Stennis, it'll banish that Stennis, and Stennis is a great card for Northern Realms, as it gains it's a 3 card that has 5 armor, and then it gives the 5 armor to another unit, which then the Dunbanner Heavy Cavalry can make very good use of, and replaying that Thinger deck very much, and playing this plus 25 card deck. I think it was a 34 card deck, if I remember correctly.
It was.
Yeah, so that'll definitely hinder Jovis's play here, if he chooses to.
Let's go for the pass here. And in general, when you lose a round and there's a big point gap, in general, obviously not in every situation, but in general, you kind of think that your opponent wasted more than you did in a round where he lost a card down regardless. So maybe CPU isn't too worried about this. He has decent cards in hand, obviously with Menno and the Infiltrator combo, Peter to counter the Heavy Cavalry, and the Raw Tosser to just get the surprise ping on this Northern Realms deck that doesn't normally run any counters to Raw Tosser. What do you think about that?
Yeah, definitely. The Raw Tosser counters aren't really there. Although if he chooses to play on the range row, he does have the Reaver Scouts to block them. But other than that, I can't really think of anything that would block those cow carcasses. So those cow carcasses could provide a lot of value here for Sapui.
We do see he goes for the mulligan on Peter, and he does get the Joachim out. We're going to see what he decides is the least valuable card here, because he does get dry passed on. So he's going to go for Raw Tosser. Obviously can't get consistent value, kind of a gamble, because you don't know how your opponent's going to play around the cow carcass. So he goes for the bronze. He decides to just strip that out and keep a lot of very good combos in hand. He has the Infiltrator, he has the Menno, which is going to take out a lot of the big cards that Giovas can pull out here.
Yeah, I think. Do you think we'll see the mulligan here on the Joachim for that huge play on the Rain Farm that most people are using as a big finisher for Nilfgaard at the moment?
Yeah, I imagine. He might just get the Armored Cavalry out, or he just keeps it in hand. Armored Cavalry can still get decent value, I think, considering there are fairly high strength units left in Giovas's deck. Yeah,
we saw those Banner Tutors, which are 9.
Exactly.
And I think there's 1 Dunbanner Heavy Cavalry or 2 left.
So yeah, he's 2 Banner Tutors. Definitely a 12-point bronze. You can't complain. That's kind of what the silver value is generally. So obviously Sipiwi is happy with that bronze, I think.
Yeah, I definitely think he's happy with that. I wonder what we see here from Jovis. I think round 3 for Northern Realms, if he has any Night Elects or anything in his hand, I think he wants to get them out as soon as possible, get those Night Elects ticking, and try and get the optimal amount of points he can out of this round. There's also the chance of the Infiltrator Menno from Sapui here that we touched on earlier.
Yeah, and it is a 2-card combo, Infiltrator Menno, so we have to see how Giovas plays this out. He does have the card advantage because he did not go first in this round, because he did win the round 1, so he is happy about that because he can kind of dodge that combo for a few turns, and maybe he can play his big finisher unit last and still have to have a way to dodge around the Menno Infiltrator combo, because it is a 2-card combo. You can't just do it in a card, and he does that card advantage as well. So I think Giovas is happy about that, but we're gonna have to we'll have to see what Giovas has in his hand. We can't really see it now, so once he starts playing, we'll see if he has the golds he needs, the silvers to be able to win this round. Because we definitely see Sipiwi's hand, and he definitely has quite powerful combos going.
Yeah, and the fact that Jovis is running that 34-card deck, he still has 18 cards left in his deck, so his draws may not have been absolutely great from what he wanted, I guess. So he may see a sort of suboptimal round here from Gravez rather than that pretty good round 3 that Northern Realms usually has with the Knight Elects and the Dumb Heavy Cavalry ticking and stuff like that.
Exactly. I mean, Gravez, we can still see he has, quite a few cards left in his deck, and of course the fact that he wanted to counter Amir, I think both players were kind of hindered by the fact that Amir was in play. So Pee-wee had to play Amir in a control spy deck, which isn't ideal, and Gravez had to bring a very thick Northern Realms deck that isn't really as consistent as other decks. So we'll see who ends up getting the advantage there because of that forced Amir matchup, considering that Pee-wee did not bring Mill in the end.
Yeah, definitely. So unfortunately, because Pee-wee doesn't have the card advantage, he's having to be forced onto playing that Infiltrator on, I guess, a lower strength unit, but the Knight Elect's definitely a good target, as it's going to get quite a lot of value over this three card left. So yeah, 3-card round that's left. So that Menno on the Knight Elect is probably going to come out next, and then we'll see what the Joachim pulls after that.
Yeah, and he's denying value. It's the 6 strength unit, but it's denying value with the Knight Elect gaining value over the next few turns. So, I mean, it's still a solid, Menno destroy. I think he's still happy with this one, although it's not like a 15-point heavy cavalry or 20-point heavy cavalry, or like a Trollolo, for example. But I mean, it's still a big play, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
To kill.
And we'll see what comes out with this Joachim pull here. Definitely a chance of high strength play from this Joachim. What do we have left? We have the Selak, Peter. Peter would definitely be a great pull here. And then there's obviously the Albert Armored Cavalry as well that can be pulled.
Yeah, the Rothauser even, depending how he plays. No, I guess every row's protected now because he has the Roach in the back row, even if he had heavy cavalry. So I guess every row's kind of protected. And he'll be hitting just 4 units maximum with the Rothauser, which is only 10 points of value, which isn't, the worst, but obviously not the greatest either for a bronze.
Here we go.
Joachim is normally a huge finish, so we'll see what he can pull here. He does get the Peter, which is decent value with the K-Ray coming out as well. Maybe not, the biggest amount in the world, but still decent. I think it's going to be pretty hard for Gravez to come back here.
Yeah, definitely. We still got to get 20 points with this Northern Realms deck, which is definitely going to be tough.
Yeah, he needs 22 plus the 2 drummers. It's Commander's Horn, but it's still not enough. Just by a little bit.
Yeah, so we see Pee-wee taking that game. Very well played by Pee-wee there. Great tech choice.
The fact that Peter killed that 1 unit denied that Commander's Horn value and pretty much won him the game. So, I mean, definitely a good Peter draw for sure. I didn't even really take into account the fact that it would banish one of the units and deny the value on the Commander's Horn, but that was definitely well played for Pee-wee. A good change of his deck from Mill to the control spy variant we saw there, or just the spy variant with the Menno and Infiltrator and all, the whole spy gang coming out. But definitely a fun series to cast. It was good, seeing Mill in action, seeing Mill countered as well by Joe Snow. Played that game really well. And just a big congrats to Ask and Alba. They managed to pull it off. So Pee-wee managed to pull through with his Amir in the end, and they pretty much cement a position in the playoffs going forward, and Team Sheep will have to battle it out in the next week 6 to try and make it. What do you think about the cast, A-?
I really enjoyed the game. It's definitely a fun cast, my first cast actually. So yeah, I definitely really enjoyed it. The way they played the system, Ask and Alba, the way they played the Conquest format was great. They changed the deck that they knew that Team Shoot would play against properly, because they brought the 30-card monster deck, so they knew that Team Shoot knew how to play against Mill. So they definitely played the last game very well by changing it to that Amir control deck. And I'm definitely excited to see those new cards coming in with the Albert Armored Cavalry that I really enjoy.
Yeah, so that was a great series to cast. I hope you guys enjoyed it, the viewers, and we're going to pass it on to Jagras and Ocean Mud at the host tag to just send the whole stream off and just comment over this series as well, and a bit on the donations in the next week's matches or the next week's stream as well. So we'll see you guys next time, and we'll send it over to them now.
Thank you very much, Panda and A- for the cast. Alba, how are you feeling about that matchup, Ocean Mud?
Well, you got your wish for the first series, Jagras, going to 6 games. The second series, it went slightly quicker, taking it to 4. I thought the set was really entertaining, even just going to 4 games, because you have that instance where everything's on the table, you're making those tech choices. We saw Synact on Ask Gwent Alba, teching in the Operator Game 1 with the Reaver Hunters to see who comes up with the victory. My one concern, though, with the series was the amount of standard decks decided being played. Decks like Spotter and Nilfgaard, they have a pocket to be effective overall, but the versatility is diminished in lieu of the element of surprise, like the NR Reaver Hunters that Ask Gwent Alba played. But with all credit due, both teams put up a good fight, and I definitely enjoyed the series.
Oh, definitely. I think the most interesting thing for me was how they adapted with Mill. I feel like, personally, Mill is a really risky choice to bring, and if you're going to bring it, you kind of need the element of surprise, which if you don't get, they can just add more cards, you know. They can just add more cards, and then you're kind of, you know, up the creek without a paddle. And the thing is, I'm really impressed with how Alba kind of adapted the deck and made it work when they realized, hey, this strategy, they've kind of prepared for this. And it was kind of interesting to see them pull out that Mill deck last as opposed to first. I know some players like to open with their stronger decks, and some players like to open with their weaker decks. And I feel like for Shoop, they definitely opened with the weaker deck with that reveal, and it just didn't work out for them. And they would have still had to, you know, win with that reveal going into the next matchup. And the question is, if they had won that, would they have still been able to make reveal work? The answer is, I don't know. But I do think this is a very interesting week in terms of the games that we're seeing. We saw Reaver Hunters. Nobody expected to see Reaver Hunters. That was, you know, a little bit of surprise. I'm not convinced it's the best deck to bring. I think, you know, Armor and Machines are generally a bit more consistent than Reaver Hunters, but it was cool to see at the same time. So all in all, you know, a great set. Commiserations to Shoop, and congratulations to Gwent Alba.
Yeah, and I think when you're going against the same leaders again and again and again, you have a distinct advantage from a lot of perspectives of different decks. And that's not to say either team didn't play well, because, for example, Team Shoop, Game 3, they were playing Dagon, and they had an opening hand that wasn't ideal, and they pulled off the victory against Sipwi, I think it was, which means they picked the matchup well, they competed well. And so while there were opportunities where they could have fumbled, overall it was a good match throughout the series. And this is what it looks like, having two top teams going at each other. And it's a good forecast of what's to come with the rest of the tournament.
Definitely. And with Hotfix Week, you know, this week, next week's going to be looking pretty good. But first, let's have a quick look at the standings for this week so we can see where everybody is at. Basically, next week is the all to play for week. You can see a whole bunch of teams there from 12th down to 22nd, down at 3-2. Oshimud, tell us about this.
Yeah, there are a lot of interesting places right now. We can see that Team Aardvark are actually in the lead, being at 5-0. And there are a couple teams that are in the danger zone, so to speak. For example, Pumpkin Down Under. One of my go-to teams is at 3-2. And Club Penguin as well is at 3-2. So let's take a look at the Week 5 brackets, actually, to see exactly where everybody is standing for this week. So we can see that, like I mentioned, Pumpkin Down Under. We know that Commander Horn Commandos are at 3-1-1. Ask Gwent Alba, mashed potatoes with thick gravy. They're maintaining the 4-1 record, putting them one step closer to the playoffs. But looking at the schedule or results, do you see anything that stands out to you, Jaggeris?
I mean, we did obviously look at these at the start of the stream, and I think the ones that we were going to be talking about are these kind of 3-2 situations. So, like you said, we did see the matches today with 6th Faction, I believe, and Shoop going down to that 3-2 position. Along with them, I believe there are quite a few other teams all kind of duking it out. Like you said, Pumpkin's team is in that kind of 3-2 position. These are the matches that we're going to be showcasing next week, because these are the matches where it really matters. So if you look forward to the next week, you should be able to see the match-ups on the screen just shortly. We'll get them in just a second for you.
Sure, and I agree with you.
There they are. Boom, look at that magic. We are so professional right here. So yeah, you can see the interesting matchups. Gwent DE and Team SGC, I believe, are both at the 3-2. Gwentlemen Red versus Pumpkin Down Under 3-2. So this is where it all kind of comes out. I mean, you know, we could see matches like Aardvark and Group 1 F2K, but they're set. You know, Aardvark, they've got 5 wins. There's no way that they're not going through to the tournaments. I mean, which games do you want to watch, Oceanmud?
Yeah, I completely agree. Gwentlemen want to watch their team. The Club Penguin sits at 3-2 as well. Wanted to make sure to definitely check that out. And I actually touched on it earlier. This is the time where some players will thrive and others will flounder. You mentioned it before, having the ability to innovate and be adaptable. It's even more apparent as we have another hotfix that came out today. it's going to change everything again, and then it will be up to the players to use that to their advantage. So this dynamic, it's something that will be very interesting to watch, and I'm with you on that.
Definitely. And the thing is funny, you know, back on week 3, I remember Panda was saying his strategy, I believe he's on strawberry dumplings along with Gruna and Keris Trash, I believe, was like, oh, we'll just get our 2 losses right at the start and then we'll win from there on so that we get an easier bracket. And he's in that position now with Strawberry Dumplings versus B Gwentle, for example. They're in that 3-2 position. Pumpkin Down Under's in that 3-2 position. You know, Gwent DE in that 3-2 position. There's a lot of teams who've like lost earlier on in the brackets and then suddenly gone on a little bit of a win streak. And now is the time when it's all to play for, and it's hotfix week. So what kind of decks do you expect to see? You know, we've seen Scoia'tael basically just straight banned this week. Do you think we'll see some Scoia'tael next week?
That's a great question, because with the hotfix coming out, we did see a lot of nerfs to Scoia'tael. But with the officer going from 6 to 4, with it being the mulligan is no longer the buff isn't given on the card you're drawn, but the card you mulligan. So it gives some influence there. I believe, you know what we didn't see? We didn't see a lot of NR nerfs. So I would expect to see a lot of NR, a lot of Nilfgaard, maybe not as much Scoia'tael, but what you mentioned was completely true. A lot of these teams right now that are 3-2, they're in the danger of bowing out of the tournament. And so next week will be their last chance to make the playoffs. So it's very important that the players make decks that are surprising, which they will be because of the hotfix, and really buckle down.
Definitely. And speaking of next week, you still have chances to donate towards the prize pool for this bracket towards next week and beyond into the future if you do wish. All of your money goes straight to the prize pool for this tournament. We started at $200 and we're up to $1,000 on the dot now. Can we make it $1,001, you guys? That is the real question. What do you think, Ocean Mud?
$1,000, and all the proceeds are donated directly to the prize pool. The prizes have been set aside. The teams get stuff for things like best meme, MVP, best play of the tournament. So if you see a play or a meme, then tweet at Gwentlemen, or if it's your game that you're actually playing, then send the clips from your TGI games so Gwentlemen can put it in a category and everyone can vote to get your favorite MVP as due. Because although there are only 2 games that are featured a week, there are a lot of great plays out there, and the better the play, the further you will go.
Yeah, I think that's the kind of prizing I would go for, just the meme plays. Like, don't even try and win, just go for the meme plays. That's the easy meal ticket, I think. But that more or less wraps it up for this week. Last thing we have to do is just do our thank yous and our shout outs. So you wanna start?
Sure. I want to thank all the mediators, everybody that has contributed to TGI in any way. Specifically Psychon Rails, Biko, especially all the non-English casters, because Insingfa, for example, we just saw him play Faction 6. He is a Korean caster for TGI, so a big appreciation to all them, the viewers, thank you, and of course everybody that donates. We really do appreciate it.
Oh, definitely. Obviously, shout outs to CDPR. We got our hotfix this week. Everyone's really happy. We'll get Pro League soon as well. So, you know, without them, none of this would happen. There wouldn't be a game. It would kind of be a bit rubbish. Obviously, shout outs to chat for all your lovely criticisms of everything that goes on here. And shout outs to Lurtz behind the screens. Like, we did have some technical problems, yes, but, you know, I think all things considered, he does a fantastic job. And a lot of people don't realize just how much work it is to get these matches for you guys week in and week out without any troubles. So shout outs to him too.
Right. It's awesome. And that's a wrap for this week, guys. This is your 5th week of TGI and well over halfway done. Someone will see you next week, next Monday, same time, same place. Take care.
Bye.